Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Welcome back. Hope you all had a great night. Thanks again for our work yesterday. That was a lot. It was an active day. Appreciated the way that everyone put that agenda together. That was a group effort. There was, as I think Barbara pointed out, a coordination and content that allowed us to have some meaningful dialogue at the end. Members of the public, thank you for participating. That was a great day. So, Matt, would you like to call roll call?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Michelle Andrus.
Here.
I see you. Okay. Mildred Brown.
Here.
Summer Harding. Havani Hayes-White. Sarah Jocham. April Lopez.
Here.
Christina Mills. Gloria Perez-Stewart. Gina Plate.
Here.
Kayla Rodriguez. Kimberly Salmonson.
Here.
Barbara Schulman.
Here.
Janine Topalian.
Here.
David Toston. Steve Winlock.
Here.
Mike Infante.
Here.
And a graduate. Congratulations, Mike. Woohoo!
Thank you.
Congrats.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Matt. Barbara, would you like to lead us in the flag salute?
Would everybody stand, please? Face the flag. Put your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much, Barbara. Michelle, would you like to run through the agenda for us today? I know it's a big day.
I just have to pull it up here really quick.
Yeah, no problem.
All right. Okay, so we're going to have an assessment update today and then liaison reports. Kristin Wright's going to share her report, and then we're going to move on to the goal award right before lunch, and that's probably the most exciting part of the day. We're also excited and looking forward to hearing from the school that won. It's got a wonderful program. I think everybody's going to love to hear about it. And then we're going to have voices from the field. We have had a request to move that up earlier in the day, and if there's time to do that, we will do that. We'll have a report on the California Budget Act, and then general public comment, and then we'll talk about next agenda items, and we'll wrap up for the day.
Fantastic. Thank you, Michelle. Any comments, questions, announcements, things we should know before we launch into our day, commissioners? Just eager to get started. Yes, April.
I just want to recognize and just say to, I did hear brief news this morning. My husband reached out to me. He said that an officer here in Sacramento was killed, a young 25, I believe, woman. And just, you know, our prayers go out to her family as they deal with all that. Officer was lost in the line of duty this morning. So.
Thank you for bringing that here. Appreciate that. Other announcements, commissioners? Things we should know before we get started. Great, thank you. Okay, well, Matt, would you like to take us through the process of the election?
One first announcement before we get started with this. Initially we had two individuals running for chair, Summer Harding and Havani Hayes-White. Havani has dropped out of the race, and so now our field for the two positions are Summer Harding for chair and David Toston for vice chair. And so I'll run us through our roll call. And just better not abstain. No. So first for Summer Harding, I guess we'll just go through and say aye or no or abstain. Michelle Andrus,
Aye.
Mildred Brown,
Aye.
Summer Harding, April Lopez,
Aye.
Gina Plate,
Aye.
Kimberly Salmonson,
Aye.
Barbara Schulman, Janine Topalian,
Aye.
David Tostin,
Aye.
Steve Winlock,
Aye.
Mike. All right. And now for vice chair, David. Don't be nervous.
I unequivocally support this candidate.
Can you two work together?
All right. Michelle Andrus,
Aye.
Mildred Brown,
Aye.
Summer Harding, April Lopez,
Aye.
Gina Plate,
Aye.
Kimberly Salmonson,
Aye.
Barbara Schulman,
Aye.
Janine Topalian,
Aye.
David Tostin,
Aye.
Steve Winlock,
Aye.
and Mike Infante.
Aye.
All right. Congratulations to Summer and David. You guys are the chair and vice chair for.
Thank you for that, Matt.
Painless.
Let me just start by saying that I am so excited to have the two of you take on the role of leadership of this commission, and have so many thoughts and feelings that I will not share today. I will also not take any comments. But I just think that this is such an such an incredible privilege that I'm excited for the two of you to get to experience. And, you know, everybody takes their hats off when they come on to this dais. And we are, as we've talked about, in federal code as one of the only commissions out there that is mandated to be an advisory body. We are mandated to take those hats off that we wear in our day jobs and come together with our heart first around what's best for kids. And you guys have done that. And so congratulations. I'm excited for you. I'm excited for the field, and excited to support you in that process. So. Okay, let's jump into item number 8. This is our assessment update. And I saw our trustee assessment folks, partners, come into the room. So I want to welcome Deb Baumgartner. Deb is not here.
Taking a guess there.
And I'm going to allow our folks to introduce themselves when they come to the podium. But thank you for being here. And I'll hand the mic over to you.
I'm short. Oh, okay, that's good. Thank you. Good morning. I am here on behalf of the Assessment Division, on behalf of Michelle, who is having a vacation with her family. So I am so happy that she has that opportunity. My name is Tracy Albee, and I oversee the English Language Proficiency and Spanish Assessments Office within Michelle's division. And today I will be co-presenting with Marianne Arcilla, who is Executive Director of Educational Testing Service, which is our testing contractor.
Nice. Welcome.
Okay. So just a quick overview of our presentation today. I will begin by going over the LPAC regulatory process and our accessibility framework that informed many of our proposed amendments to our regulations, which will be coming to you in July, or to the SBE, the State Board of Education. Next, Marianne will present information on the upcoming LPAC Cognitive Labs and Accessibility Pilot that will be happening this coming October, along with our field tests. We're very excited to share this information with you. And then I will come back and share information regarding our 1% cap for the California alternate assessments. And then lastly, we will have some time for questions. So first, we will start with our regulatory process and the accessibility framework. So the the CDE will bring proposed emergency regulations and regulatory rulemaking to the State Board of Education at the upcoming July meeting. On July 12th, we will pre-notice the emergency regulations on our CDE rulemaking website for 5 business days, after which we will submit the emergency rulemaking package to the Office of Administrative Law, or OAL. OAL will post and accept public comments on the emergency regulations at that time, so the public do have an opportunity to provide input for 5 days. If there's no comment and OAL approves the emergency regulations, they will become effective 10 days after the submission, or close to the beginning of August. Okay. The regular regulations will be noticed on July 26th after the July board, and public comments will open at that point, and that will run through September 9th. At that point, we will have our a public comments meeting, and we will allow members of the public to come in and ask any questions, and we can dance. And so that process of collecting that information then informs any changes, or if we would make any or submit them as approved at that time. So, what are the proposed changes to the LPAC regulations that we are working on? So we there are 4 main purposes for making these recommendations. So first purpose is to integrate common terms that are relevant to the computer-based platform. So, for example, the Assessment Management System, which is a term used for CASP, uses a set of web applications that manages the multiple functions required of the assessment system. This is now going to be applicable to LPAC, and so we now have to add all of those new common terms that were in our CASP system into our LPAC regulations. So the second purpose is to make revisions to increase continuity in the terms used across multiple assessment programs. So what we use in our CASP assessments, as well as our interim assessments, as well as our LPAC assessments, we will now be making sure that we have that continuity. So for example, we are now proposing to include a definition on pupils with the most significant cognitive disabilities. We're using the same definition that we use in our CASP will now be added into our LPAC. Other ones such as Test Administration Manual or TAM, which are used in CASP, will also now be added as defined terms. The third purpose is to create electronic efficiencies for our local educational agencies. What I mean by that is that LEAs will no longer need to keep copies of their test security agreement and test security affidavits. These forms will now be managed electronically, which creates efficiencies for LEAs in the transition to the electronic agreement process, and they will have those easily accessible to them to review and ensure that everybody has signed those agreements. And lastly, but most importantly, and why we are here today, is that the CDE is pleased to be able to propose an expanded list of accessibility resources for the English learners of our state. As a paper-based assessment, the LPAC only had non-embedded accessibility resources. Non-embedded resources are those which are provided by an LEA outside of the online test delivery system. The transition to a computer-based assessment has allowed the LPAC program to leverage the embedded resources available in this online test delivery system. Both the non-embedded and embedded resources help to create the accessibility framework, which is located in Attachment 1 of the recently posted June 2019 LPAC Informational Memorandum to the State Board of Education. Yes.
So if the reading to the student is what it is in the other, it would be the same in this program. If you could look up a definition or something, that would be in. So it's the same. Whatever the students have learned, they'll use it exactly the same?
It depends. If there is a construct being there, so accessibility resources are made available when it does not alter the construct that is being measured. So if a student is allowed to have a passage read to them, then they're allowed to have a passage read to them. But that may alter the construct being measured, and that may end up being in or scored as a loss. Now, we also make other accessibility resources available to the student to enable them to read their passages to them, for example. But it depends on what resources.
So I guess what I'm asking is, if they have those resources for the other tests,
right,
and it's in their IEP, let's say, can they use them?
They can use them,
but it may not count.
It may not count.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So because we are measuring a student's proficiency to read, we have to, it doesn't mean that they aren't allowed to have somebody read to it or have what is it called, an AAC, an assistive device for them. We allow them to have it because that's what their IEP says, but it may alter the construct and therefore they would receive a loss. I hope that makes sense. But yes, whatever is now used on the other assessments will be available for the LPAC, but we identify which do change the construct in the accessibility framework, which we did post on the June memo. Okay. So, as you know, in developing this framework, the CDE and ETS solicited input from select members of our technical advisory group, including member Dr. Martha Thurlow. And we also reached out to members of our assessment stakeholder group, which are those members that are listed on this page, who we would like to give a big round of applause and thank you to our stakeholders who actually reviewed our accessibility framework and provide us with some feedback and proposed recommendations. So just to get back to the framework and how it is laid out in the information, as you know, we have used the multi-tiered approach in the accessibility framework, which includes both embedded and non-embedded resources. So in the new framework, it actually has the information side by side to know whether it is for a paper-based assessment or for a computer-based assessment. And that's really important because we will continue to offer our initial LPAC assessment in 2019-20 as a paper-based, and students will be allowed to use paper-based assessments on an emergency level, such as, you know, in Paradise when the whole school burned down, we allowed to have paper pencil tests, you know, if they wanted to. So just a reminder that universal tools are resources that are available to all students on the basis of student preference and selection. We have also designated supports, which are resources available to use by any student for whom the need has been indicated by an educator or a team of educators, with, of course, parent and guardian and student input as appropriate. And finally, we will also have accommodations, which are changes in procedures or materials that increase equitable access during the testing for students who need them, based on documentation through an individualized education program or a Section 504 plan, resulting in the generation of valid assessment results. So this goes back to we determine which accessibility resource ensure that there are valid assessment results. Okay. Again, this is consistent with our current LPAC resources, but however, having this new online test delivery considerably expands the resources that are now available to our English learners. So I'm just going to give you a couple updates or highlight on a few new things that are different for LPAC, and we're very excited about this. So we actually are adding 2 new roles. We are proposing these roles to assist students with navigating within the test delivery system. So that technology is not a barrier for accessing the test, but there is a difference in the level of support between the 2 roles. This assistance in this role can be provided in a group setting as well as in a one-on-one situation for kindergarten through grade 2. So the test navigation assistant is a universal tool which is available to all students who may not have technology familiarity to correctly navigate the test delivery system. So for example, the test examiner or the test navigation assistant would help with the operation of the mouse to click and point and click, moving around the screen, helping them understand how that works. They may also provide scroll bar assistance, so understanding how the pages scroll or the items scroll up and down. They may demonstrate on how to expand and collapse the screens and passages. So our test delivery system allows students to see the whole passage or all of the items, or it does a split screen. So you have that ability to expand, and that's not always something that students are familiar with. So our test navigation assistant will be there monitoring the students and will be able to help them with those. And finally, they're able to assist with button navigation to go from one question to the next question, submit, review, all of those things. So that is our test navigation assistant. The next role is designed as another layer of support available to students with an identified need during a one-on-one administration. Okay, so this designated support is intended to assist the student with input of responses within the test delivery system. So for example, in the writing domain, a student may be unable to provide their written response using a keyboard. They're not familiar with the keyboarding skills yet, but the student has the opportunity to provide a handwritten response, and then the designated interface assistant will input the student's response verbatim into the test delivery system. So we are not having the computer be a barrier to them to responding to the questions. So that is what the designated interface assistant does. So we have created a couple new designated supports. So in the past, both pausing the audio and replaying the audio were accommodations and are now being proposed as designated supports in the amendments to their regulations. The request for this change came from stakeholder input, and after consultation with one of our national experts, we are proposing to make this change. This would allow any teacher or student that needs additional time to pause or replay the audio. It would be a designated support where they would need to go into the system and actually click on allow additional pausing or replaying. Lastly, I would like to point out that print on demand is also being proposed as a designated support as well. This is in contrast to CAS program, where print on demand is an accommodation. The CDE felt it would be beneficial to have this available to all students based on need, especially our newcomers, our kindergarten through grade 2 students who may not have experience with reading text from an electronic device. So this allows our test examiners to print something that may need to be read by a student, to have it in front of them, rather than reading it on a screen. And again, this will all be a student-by-student decision. But this next thing is what we're really kind of excited about, and what we hope to help our educators, our LEAs, to help determine if students are actually ready to take this test on their own and the level. Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much. I think we have a question for you, April.
Thank you. Thank you. Before you moved on, I wanted to ask a quick question on the proposed K through second.
Yes.
Why is it only K through second? And my thoughts are that there might be.
It's for all students.
Oh, okay.
It's just an example for
the new roles are for all students. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, it is for all students. It's just we primarily created it because we know that newcomers and K through 2 students may not be used to reading things on the screen depending on their classroom instruction, but it is for all students.
I'm just finding that as as the technology gets better, that we'll find more kids with special needs that'll be testing. I know there's some kids that opt out of it, and they may find themselves not navigating around as easy and may utilize this.
Correct.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yes. Okay. So as I said, we're developing this informational tool for LEAs to give students prior to test administration. This optional tool, again, it's not mandated for them to use, but it would be based on the teacher's knowledge or the test examiner's knowledge of the student's familiarity with using and navigating an electronic device. So this will help LEAs to make more informed decisions about the levels of support that students may need for accessing the computer-based test. The criteria for this tool was that it would be brief, image-based, grade-appropriate tool that could be used across all assessment programs, not just the LPAC. So now I'm actually going to turn this over to Mary Ann, who will explain to you our 2 special studies that will be conducted this fall regarding our new accessibility resources for the LPAC, some of which I spoke about a few moments ago.
Welcome, Mary Ann.
Thank you. Thank you, Tracy. Good morning, commissioners. My name is, just for the record, my name is Mary Ann Arcilla. I'm the executive director for the CASP and LPAC programs at Educational Testing Service, and I'm based here in Sacramento. In my role, I have the responsibility of ensuring the successful development, administration, scoring, and reporting of both the CASP and LPAC programs. One of the major factors of the success of these programs is the continuous data-driven improvement that we have as part of the process for both programs, CASP and LPAC. And today we're going to focus on LPAC. And I do apologize, I'm getting over a cold, so I sound a little hoarse.
No worries.
And so some of what Tracy presented, as she mentioned, came out of stakeholder input. That's definitely a source of the data that we use for improving the assessments. Another activity that we do are formal research and studies, and that is a different source to help us improve. In fact, the tool that, the technology information tool that Tracy just spoke of came out of our April usability test with 2 school districts in Central California, where the feedback from those participants really showed that we needed that sort of tool. So the studies and the research that we do, the feedback that we get, it's really critical for making sure that the assessments that are out there are really really meaningful for the students and of course the educators as well. one of those days, yeah. The soundtrack to the presentation.
Yeah, everyone double check your phones, please.
Okay.
Sorry, Marianne.
And so I'm here to talk about two of those formal opportunities that we have for feedback, and it is specifically for LPAC. So during the month of October, ETS, under the direction of the California Department of Education, will be conducting two opportunities. We all have two distinct opportunities where local education agencies, test examiners, students will be able to provide us input on accessibilities that will be available for the computer-based LPAC. And this is part of our the transition plan to make sure that the instructions that we're producing, the training that we'll be presenting, and the accessibilities that are available are appropriate and are useful, for the students. So again, two opportunities. One opportunity is called the Accessibility Pilot, and the other opportunity is called the Cognitive Lab for English learner students with disabilities. Both of these opportunities actually not only will involve English learners, but also students with disabilities. I'll talk a little bit more about that when I talk about the COG Labs. So the main purpose of there's three main purposes for conducting these two studies. One is to provide an opportunity to explore and interact with the computer-based LPAC accessibility resources. And this will be important, and we think it'll be valuable for participants to do these two studies. One of these two studies, or both, would be great, so that they have a ability or an opportunity to interact well before the operational assessment. Another purpose is to gather feedback, as I mentioned, so that we can inform the ongoing development of the, in this case, the test examiner directions, but also, to look ahead if there are other opportunities to improve the accessibilities in the online assessment. And then as a third purpose is to provide validity evidence, which is critical. It's a critical element for the federal peer review process. So I'll talk first about the accessibility pilot. Again, both of these opportunities are going to be done during the entire month of October. So the accessibility pilot will allow local education agencies a simple and straightforward way to provide feedback to CDE and ETS about the accessibilities. What will happen actually on September 3rd, as part of the rollout and the transition for computer-based LPAC, we will be releasing the training test, the new online training test for LPAC. The training test, it's not a full test, but it will have enough test questions, passages, and so on in there so that test examiners, students, test administrators, school staff can go in there and have a tryout of what does the audio replay look and feel like? What does the writing portion look like? What does the speaking portion look like? So there'll be elements of the full test in there so you could get a good look and feel. So again, that training test will be available September 3rd. It does use the same system as CASP, the same test delivery system. So students and educators that have administered or have taken the CASP will have some familiarity with the LPAC, online LPAC as well. And this training test that we'll be releasing will be fully accommodated, and that means it'll have the embedded supports, the embedded designated supports and accessibilities included so that LEAs and students can try them out. So during the full month of October, we're going to ask participating local education agencies to have their students try out the training test. So as part of the pilot, we'll provide training to the participating LEAs, to their test examiners on the what we're looking for in the pilot, particularly how to administer the computer-based test. Again, this is a training test, so it'll be a short administration. Yes.
How did you pick who's taking the pilot?
So this is, I'll get,
We're going to get there.
I will
Okay.
get there, but we want everyone to participate.
Yeah, but it didn't sound that way. It sounded like you chose certain people to do the pilot, but then on another high, it sounded like anybody could take it.
Yes, and
So I was confused.
Sorry about that. I apologize for the confusion. We do want. Let me go to this one. So, no, that's fine, and I'll go back to the other one. We were going back and forth anyway, on the order of this. And so for this accessibility pilot, we do want all local education agencies, all schools, as many schools as possible, and as many students as possible to really participate in this, so that we can get a good sense of the accessibility features for LPAC. And then we could make sure that in the training materials that we have for the test examiners, and we're also developing other training materials for students and so on, that they're appropriate so that when it comes to the operational assessment in spring, there'll be enough information out there that it's not so nerve-wracking. So really, to answer your question, all local education agencies, any English learners, especially English learner students with disabilities. And one of the things I was going to ask, but I'll ask now, is if I was going to ask this commission, the commissioners here, to share the information about the pilot with your parents, your educators, your school districts, and really encourage them to participate. Because the more information we have, the better our assessments are. I think one of the things you've seen for CASP over the years is just the continuous improvement, so that now we're at a place for that assessment where the students and test administrators are very comfortable with what's there. And so we want to do the same for LPAC. So really asking this commission to really encourage your school districts to participate. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. I guess I think about when you look at a classroom, how crazy it is. How do you encourage a school district to have all students participate unless you're telling them this is what we need? Because my district may not participate, but another district may. That it skews your results a little bit based on just the disparities and some of the different areas and how successful some of the outcomes are. And do you keep track of which schools are participating and which kids are participating? I'm just curious on how you're gathering the information.
Sure. So this one will be, I'll go back to the other side. So after we go through provide the training, and then we'll make the training available to actually any test examiner once we have that available, so that then they have it for the full year leading up to the summative assessment. And then we'll ask them to administer the test, the training test to their students. It could be one, it could be many. In this case, what we're asking them to do in step 3 is to complete an online survey. We do recognize that there's a lot going on in the classroom, and this is something that they might not think of, or I'm sure they haven't planned this right now. But maybe this is something that could be incorporated as part of learning, computer time or something, where they can see what's there in the LPAC, as well as learning about the online tools. I'm not sure if I answered your question.
Can I add on? Sure. So one of the reasons that we have our training tests and also our practice tests is to allow our test examiners to work with their students and determine what accessibility resources work best for their students, what they're using in their classroom. And so this will give them an opportunity to see how those will work with those items. So I think it's going to be an opportunity that a lot of districts will probably maybe not do a whole classroom, but they may do 1 or 2 students, and just those 1 or 2 students kind of spread out throughout the state is it's going to give us a lot of information. We would love to target, and ensure that we are having a very good representative sample from north, central, south, and a variety of different schools. And we will look at that information when it comes back, because we will have that detailed kind of information from the surveys that ETS is collecting. But I think we're going to find a lot of 1 or 2 students that are going to be administered, and it's going to be used more as, okay, I tried this accessibility support, and now I know whether or not it's going to work for this student. And so I think it's going to be more so like that than sort of a targeted, like what we want them to use it to inform their decisions, not just because we need them to do it. Does that make sense?
It does, yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
I guess
Barbara.
that's why I asked the question, because when the CASP first came out, this is so important for school districts, even if they try it with 1 student, just to have the knowledge before they give the test. So I'm very glad that you're doing this, because it was part of what we wanted years ago when everything was first coming out, was to let them do it. So it really doesn't matter if it's 1 student or 2 students, or it doesn't matter if it's whole class. It's the fact that you're giving educators the opportunity to do this is very appreciative, and gives the educators and the students some knowledge of what the test is going to be. It takes that fear of test taking away, and it gives, so I'd like to say thank you. And if my question caused problems, I didn't mean it to, because I was hoping that it could be done for 2 students just so the school had an idea. So I appreciate it very much, going back into the history of what the tests were like and what we really need for students. So thank you very much.
One of the things that we will be also doing is an optional online focus group. And this is with the test examiners, where we'll ask test examiners more pointed questions about their experience with the accessibility features. For the online focus group, they can sign up for that. It's a volunteer, but we do have an incentive for that, for those that participate in that. And definitely please feel free to share this email. This is our person at ETS that is in charge of making sure that the accessibility pilot is being done, and we're collecting the information. And she's also the person, her first name is Dusty, dfox@ets.org. And she's also responsible for coordinating the focus group, the online focus group as well. Okay, the other opportunity we have, and this one, Commissioner Schulman, I'll just make it a point to mention that this one is a targeted opportunity, because this one has a bit more specificity to it. In this COG lab, what we want to do is work with test examiners and students who are visually impaired or who are deaf and hard of hearing, focusing specifically on their needs, their accessibility needs, as we move to online assessment, the computer-based assessment for LPAC. In this case, the COG lab is very different from the accessibility pilot. The accessibility pilot, in that case, any LEA test examiner could go in, work with their students anytime during the month of October. For the COG labs, it also is happening during October, but in this case, it's very much a one-on-one administration with observations by an ETS person, an ETS researcher. And what will happen is that we'll train the test examiners in the cognitive lab process. Not only is there the actual administration of in this case, the accessibility feature to the student, but then there's also a interview section. So once the administration for the student has been completed, the ETS researcher will ask the test examiner and the students more pointed questions about, when they press this button, what were they expecting, or what would make it work better. So it's a very much more targeted input here. We would like to have any LEA that has English learners who are visually impaired or deaf or hard of hearing to participate. This is a much smaller population, so we are opening it up to also non-English learners, but the main point is that they are students who are visually impaired or deaf or hard of hearing. And in this case, the students who participate will get an incentive for their participation. And the same person, Dusty Fox, D. Fox at ETS, is our person who's coordinating that. And so if you know, so we have how we're recruiting this population is that we have the information from the who took the test last year using Braille or audio. And we're using that as a first cut of who we're targeting. But if you do know of any LEAs that have these kinds of students, we would welcome your encouragement of their participation. And thank you. That's all. Any questions?
Thank you, Marianne.
Yeah, thank you, Marianne.
We just have one more piece of information. So as you know, on June 4th, 2019, we received a letter from the federal government regarding California exceeding the 1% of all students assessed in alternate assessments. So the CDE must respond with a plan by August 1st, 2019 on how California will come into compliance with the 1% requirement. So we will be working on this, developing a letter, a plan, information, and then that will go to the State Board of Education as a memo, am I correct? As a memo to let the State Board know what we plan to do in order to come into compliance. Yeah, questions?
Yeah, great, yes, Michelle, go ahead.
Can you tell me what our percentage was that was exceeding 1.0?
I'm going to have my superior here, Mal Vang, come up.
Hi, good morning. My name is Mal Vang, and I also work for the assessment office. I think I presented to some of you before. Yes, the 1%, we went over 0.09% on ELA and 0.09% in math and 0.07% in science. So that is how we learned that we went over that 1%. As you see, the federal government is taking it to the hundredths place. So we are, there is no indication that the students who are taking this test are the ones who should not be taking this test. So we feel very confident about that. And also recently, I mean, the special ed division has been doing monitoring, and they've been encouraging participation. So that may have, something to do with it. And in our plan, we will work with our LEAs to report more specifically to us if they think that they're going to pass over that. I know, I see your faces about the percentage, and it's just, yes, it is. They are putting a condition hold on our Title I Part A funds, and we will respond and do whatever they ask us to do. And we want this to be right, too, and we want to report it correctly as well.
I just have a quick follow-up. So just like if somebody chooses not to participate via a parent opt-out letter, does that count against you in your percentage, or does that just kind of nullify them?
Yes, that does count. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes, because it's a participation. Yeah. Yeah.
Got it. So,
any other questions or thoughts?
Sounds like
yes.
we have some reactions to that.
Well,
April?
I'm learning a lot of this, so forgive me, because thank God for our new vice president, vice chair, David, because I'm hoping that I'll still get to sit by him so I can write little notes what these acronyms mean, but he's wonderful. I can tell you that I know of so many parents, and I've been hearing this for, my daughter's 16, that they do not take the test because how could you be so unkind to your child to have them sit there through this long test because they don't understand it? And I've always struggled with that myself because I want her to be counted and want someone to know that, you know, she needs more because it's showing on a test score, and I know that she knows a lot more, like most kids know a lot more than those test scores because they just can't get through those tests. So that's shocking to me. This is absolutely shocking to me for whatever that's worth. I wanted to share that I know plenty of parents that do not have their kids sit through a test. So I'm hoping with technology and better testing out there that's available that's to come, that more kiddos will be taking the test and will be counted. So thank you for being here.
Thank you for that, April. Other comments, questions? Barbara, was that a hand? Nope. Okay.
Okay.
People who opt their children out, and I don't think they understand that that is causing the difficulty here for the state. I don't think that's a knowledge that parents have. They're doing what they think is right for their son or daughter. So I think that was a very interesting piece of information to learn today.
If I can add,
Yeah.
so we're shocked, and I see administrators up here that are so knowledgeable in all of this. You can imagine sitting at a team meeting where the specialists there on that team don't know this information as well, and there's no encouragement for them to tell parents to take the test or to be counted. I haven't ever heard anyone tell me. They just say, no, I'm not going to take the test. Oh, or automatically, no, I know you don't want to have a test done, so that's okay. We'll mark it here. So
That's a good point.
Yeah, and it is
Thank
an
you for
IEP
that.
decision, IEP team decision for students to participate in the alt. So we appreciate all your input and comments.
I just want to, so statistically, if I get the maximum number of gen ed kids to do that, then it's going to bring your percentage down on kids on the alt exam because it's based on the overall percentage of kids who took the test. Or is it just based on the population of students in the state of California? Which one is it?
It's a little bit of both in that what we're talking about is the 1% cap, right? But you're also talking about participation rate, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you are right that the more the students participate, it brings up a higher percentage rate of participation for everyone. However, the federal government puts a cap that only 1% of the students should be taking the alternate.
So that right. So my idea is it 1% of the test taker taking the alternate, or 1% of the population? What's the actual number?
1% of not the test taking population.
Right. So then the more gen ed testers I have, then the testing population is then diluted, right? So that might be part of the answer. Okay, just thinking about it. Okay, thank you.
Increased gen ed, yes.
Yes.
But it's an IEP decision. If the student needs an alternate, then they need to have an alternate.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. Great, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Quick question.
So, okay, yeah. So I'm sorry, David, go right ahead.
So that 1% is about 3,000 to 4,000 students. I mean, is that a?
It's more like 30-some thousand.
Okay.
Okay. For ELA and math, remember we kind of give the test at different grade levels, right? ELA math grades 3 through 8 and 11, and then science is in grades 5, 8, and high school. And the grade level is determined at the local level.
Nice. Thanks for that clarification. Yeah, Mildred, go ahead.
Just a comment, just for April. This the whole notion of assessments is a very rich dialogue, and in terms of if you're working on your performance indicator review, particularly if that was an area that your local LEA or school district is concerned about as far as one of the indicators. So I know that from attending and facilitating several PIR meetings that it is a conversation, and many of the strategies include communication with the families about the test or the importance of taking the test.
I have that in my notes to talk to you about.
Nice.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay.
Nice. Thank you, Mildred. Excellent point. Other questions, Steve?
Do you know the students that are opting out, the 30,000, are we keeping any data about who those students are, ethnicity or special ed or any of those?
Yeah, in terms, we do know when parents opt out, there is a code that they mark indicating the parent has opted the student out. So we know who they are, but it is still their option to do so.
Sure, sure. Do you share that data?
No, not necessarily. I mean, it depends on how. Like, we have reported, like, what percentage opt out, right, to the board. We've shared that in public releases. Yeah, so that has been shared. Not individually, but at the aggregate level.
Mm-hmm. Yes, makes sense. Kimberly?
But parents aren't required to say why. So we don't have any
Not
why
at all.
data.
No.
And there are groups that tell people to opt out. I mean, there are a lot of groups out there that are telling people to opt out of testing. So this isn't just for students with special needs, even though that's why we're here as a commission. This is across the state.
Mm-hmm.
Right, they are all impacting.
Mm-hmm.
I think more information to kind of help with the misinformation out there would be helpful too.
I agree. So any place you all can take this information and spread it, I think just additional conversation is valuable. Yeah, go ahead, Summer.
Just to clarify, though, your presentation was on exceeding the 1% threshold for those taking the alternate assessment, correct? Okay, I just want to make sure I got that right.
We just wanted to share that we got that letter from the U.S. Department of Ed, and it's specific to that. But it kind of, you're right in that it kind of all tied together.
Mm-hmm. Great. Okay, commissioners, other questions, comments? No? Okay, Tracy and Marianne and Mal, thank you so much for your time and coming to our meeting each time. Okay, commissioners, we're a little bit ahead of schedule, and if you remember yesterday, we did our liaison report from Dr. Sandoval yesterday. So we're going to go ahead and skip to item number 10, which is our update from our State Special Ed Director, Kristin Wright. So with that, Kristin, thanks for being flexible in timing. Hand it over to you.
Good morning, commissioners. I have some updates and announcements to share with you. Maybe we'll just talk briefly about the previous presentation and about the 1%. And I harken back to the days when Barbara Schulman was representing the commission many years ago, when we were at a point in the state where we didn't have an alternate assessment that was aligned to the grade level standards. And as a commission that I used to sit on, we really pushed to have every one of our students in California count in the accountability system, and really pushed to ensure that students with disabilities had access to their grade level standards. And so, you know, when I think about, I always believe in a parent's choice, but I also firmly believe that part of the impetus for accountability and for testing in general is to make sure that we give kids every chance that they can get, and presume that competence and have those high expectations. So it's sort of interesting that those two things sometimes bump up against each other, and I struggle with it too as a parent. But I think ultimately we don't want to assume anything about any students, so we want to give them access to their standards every year, regardless of how far behind they are and how developmentally far behind they are, because we've talked about this before, that if you only test at a preschool or kindergarten level and every year of your life you only get that curriculum, that's madness. That's, you know, and what we realized even in my own situation was that a lot of the behaviors that were occurring was because she was bored. And she had heard, you know, you're 15 and you don't want to learn the ABCs anymore. You already knew them. You just didn't have a way to express that you knew them. And so one thing that I really like about the impetus for having to be tested is when you're tested, you have to have a way to communicate what you know. And so if we use that as a leverage point to make sure that every single student had the ability to communicate what they know, that in of itself is a game changer for many students who still in teenage years don't have any way to communicate. And many of them we know, and I just observed a young man who has a lot of significant physical disabilities and developmental disabilities, who has significant cerebral palsy, who really had a hard time learning to communicate. And once he was given an eye gaze and taught how to use it, he's telling us all kinds of things. And, you know, so the whole testing piece, again, is has a lot of elements to it. But I think if we think about it as a way to promote the most presumed competence we can, and as parents, we use that as an avenue to advocate for, if you're going to test my kid, they need to be having a way to communicate what they know. So we better have that communication in place and work relentlessly to have that. So just wanted to share that. And again, I struggle with it too, but I think there are some underpinnings. And I know, going back again to why we fought for it in the first place as parents, wasn't because we wanted our kids tested all the time. It was because what came with that was some accountability to the system about presuming that competence. So I wanted to give a couple updates around, the first one is around disproportionality. And as you know, this has been a hot button issue in the state for good reason. And there's been some changes over the past year around the significant disproportionality regulations. There was an implementation of the regulations that came back from the Obama administration. There was a pause on those regulations. There was a lawsuit. There was a court decision that said that those regulations couldn't be paused, and now those regulations are in full swing. California had made a decision to continue forward with putting the regulations in place anyway, so we're in a good position. So we will have 3 years of data for this year, and we will be sending out letters soon to let folks know that they will likely be significantly disproportionate for these last 3 years. We will be having, one of the things that states can do is that they can set measurable progress around what it means to move towards getting out of significant disproportionality or not getting into significant disproportionality. And Mildred, we're still looking into some of those questions that you had yesterday. So we will be having a stakeholder group on Monday. They have been meeting regularly to help decide what the state wants to do in terms of what kind of measurable progress is accepted, how much is enough. So we'll keep you updated on that. In the meantime, California has also adopted the same methodology, which is fairly stringent methodology, for disproportionality. And the reason for that is that if districts know what is going to lead them into significant disproportionality and we're using the same methodology, then it's sort of more like an early warning system. Like, you're heading down this road, here's some things that you can do. We have a project called the SPP TAP project at Anapa County that works with our LEAs, nice blower. And we have some folks that work with our LEAs. Mildred's been really active around this issue of significant disproportionality and given a lot of her time and energy to this. And so just want you all to know that this is an issue we're taking really seriously, and moving forward, we will continue to have the stakeholder groups and keep you updated. Mildred's your representative on there. Gina is also on there. And if that's an area of interest to you moving forward, you can let your new chair know. And so that is that. Any questions about that? So as part of our new superintendent coming into office beginning in January, Tony Thurmond, he set out to find out what the field and stakeholders think about things. And so he's been convening about 14 different groups to his transition committee groups is what they're being called. And one of those groups is about improving special education. You've had some members of the commission attend some of those. We've had 3 stakeholder meetings across the state to gather input with the purpose of looking for 2 short and 2 long-term goals related to improving special education. So once all that information and data is compiled, I'll be happy to bring that back and share that with you. And we'll be speaking with the superintendent about what the public and the stakeholders have asked that we do more of, look into, those sorts of things. So stay tuned for that. Those committees have ended, and we have a lot of new stakeholders, about 150 new stakeholders that are now engaged in thinking about special education. Many new ones that have not previously been engaged, so we will be using sort of our new list and our existing stakeholders to have a lot more focus groups and other things over the next year or so to continue to improve our own processes. I had the opportunity last Saturday to go to a graduation at Discovery Challenge Academy in Stockton, and it was a partnership, and a unique partnership between the military department and San Joaquin County Office of Education. And the reason I mentioned it is because it's a great opportunity to see what types of collaborations are possible when local communities get together and decide that they have a need that's not being filled. And so just wanted to give a shout out to them and the great work they're doing. As you know, in the governor's last budget, there was a $10 million allocation for SELPA leads, meaning that as part of the state system of support, SELPAs were anointed to be sort of one of the legs of the stool around the state system of support to really start helping other SELPAs and local educational agencies understand special education, especially since 2/3 of the districts that were identified for differentiated assistance in the dashboard were around issues related to special education and their students with disabilities. So those leads, there's 3 leads that are called capacity building leads, and those leads are really looking at data and how to analyze data and how to take all the special education indicators and all the things that we do and sort of make those coherent with our current system, our larger system. And they've been doing an amazing job, both developing materials that will be available to everyone, as well as setting up trainings to help the other SELPAs build capacity. We also have launched our content leads, and perhaps in the August meeting or the following one, you would want to have them come and let you know what they're doing and how they're doing it and what types of resources are available out there. So I'll leave that up to you. But we're really excited about that and the role that they're playing in the state system of support. Special education is definitely at the table. As part of our own state technical assistance, we have to go at times out of state to receive technical assistance from technical assistance providers. And I had the opportunity with some of my staff recently to go to Minnesota to what they called a redesign and kind of thinking about special education. And what's really helpful sometimes is to, just like with other local educational agencies and schools talking to each other, states being able to talk to each other and work through problems of practice together. So just wanted you to know that as part of our job in the state, we also have to go get help, and it's also really enlightening to be able to talk to other states about what they're doing and bring some of their practices back, especially around monitoring and other things like that. I also had the opportunity to travel for a week down up north, it's up, with Carla Estrada from the CCEE, California Collaborative for Educational Excellence, Barbara, to just not using my acronyms, to really see what it's like to go to the far reaches of California and what types of issues that they face in rural counties. They have 31 school districts within that Humboldt Del Norte SELPA, and so Mindy Fadig, who's Herculean and Superwoman basically, is supporting many, many LEAs, sometimes taking 5, 6, 7 hours to drive between them. And it really shows from an economies of scale perspective why, especially in the rural counties, you do need that regionalized support. And one of the things that I thought was interesting was that SELPA has hired a number of different kinds of related service providers, because some of the school districts are one school districts, and they may be 2 blocks from another one school district. And you can't hire full-time DHH teachers or VI teachers or behaviorists, and so the SELPA hires them, and then they allow districts to buy pieces of them back. And so it was an interesting sort of shined a light on that, the SELPA model in its truest form, and kind of, I think, what it was intended for. And thanks to Mindy for that visit. It was really helpful to get an idea, because a lot of times we talk about the big urbans and we think about things, we're here in Sacramento. As Kelly mentioned, it was illuminating to talk to many, many teachers at CTA State Council. Thank you so much for having me, and I really hope you invite me back again, because as you know, we're only as good as the teachers that are teaching our children in the classroom, and the kind of support that they need and the things that they're facing are just immense. And so, we look forward to a greater partnership and figuring out how we can all work together to make sure that our teachers are supported and that the jobs we're asking them to do are reasonable. We are in a really great partnership with the Early Childhood Division, and I'll just cap that off by saying the director of the Early Childhood Division, Sarah Neville Morgan, who's been instrumental in the inclusive preschool sort of collaboration across the state, is now our deputy. And so we have a real partner in crime there around believing in really starting with inclusion in preschool, some of what we heard yesterday about that backward mapping. And as part of that last year's budget, I think there was $157 million around there that was put in the budget to expand inclusive preschool through supporting professional learning and facilities, changing facilities if necessary, or adding a portable on site if it was to allow you to be able to create inclusive preschool options in your district. So that grant is out now. It's on the website. It's called the IEEEP, the Inclusive Early Education, and I don't know the rest of it, Barbara, but we will make sure that we can send all the things I'm talking about now, we will send out to you. So it's the EAP. Look for the EAP. And so all local educational agencies can apply for these funds. And again, it's anything from personalized or from professional learning or universal design, whatever is going to help get more inclusive preschool options. And you'll see the criteria that's laid out in statute within that. And this is a partnership between the Early Ed Division and the Special Ed Division that have been working really closely together. In other changes at the CDE, you'll see him in a little while, Tom Adams. I think this is his last day today, and he's going to come help introduce the Gold Award. But there has been another deputy that has been anointed, and that is Stephanie Gregson, who is also an incredibly wonderful partner in crime around. She's been directing the curriculum and frameworks division, and one of our friends who's been instrumental in ensuring that students with disabilities are illuminated within the frameworks. Universal design for learning and reading are high priorities. So having these two at the deputy level is a really good thing for us in special education. So I'm really excited to have them on board. To that end, last year we had applied as a state for the TIES, and I have no idea what that stands for, but it's the name of an opportunity with the University of Minnesota. They are now a technical assistance center, and they're working on curriculum and instruction for students with significant disabilities. And so last year, California applied to be their first intensive state to work with them, and they gave it to Maryland. But they are looking for another state this year. We were asked to apply again. We did apply, and we are in the finalists and are waiting for an interview for that. And what does that mean? That just means that we will have an impetus to be able to focus on curriculum and instruction, which has been a huge barrier in talking to districts about how do you really, if you're including students with disabilities, significant disabilities, what is the scope and sequence of teaching them, and how can that help inform our own adoptions to make sure that our publishers are speaking to the full range of learners in every classroom if we're going to have the full range of learners in every classroom. So I'll keep you updated on that. We will have, for those of you who are interested, I highly recommend you go to the MTSS conference. Our Scaling Up MTSS folks at Orange County are having another huge conference. This year it's in Long Beach from July 29th through 31st. It's going to be an incredible conference with all kinds of great stuff. So if you or any of your teachers or any of the folks in the audience there want to make sure that you send folks to that, it's going to cover everything. And it's one of the places that Veronica Aguilar, who's the director of the English Learner Division, and I will be introducing our new state special education English learner. So it's English Learner with Disabilities Practitioner Guide that we are publishing that should be finished beginning of July. And so we will start doing professional learning around that. We're really excited about that coming out. That was a lot of work and a great collaboration between the Special Ed Division and the English Learner Division. We also have an internal change in the Special Ed Division, and that is with Noelia Hernandez being promoted to an administrator of the Program and Policy Unit. And she has a long history of experience here at the department working for various divisions, so she's bringing a wealth of knowledge and spunk to the job. You guys will meet her later, but we're really excited to have her on board. She has a lot of great ideas. Wow, that's a lot, huh? There's still a few more things, so just bear with me. So in addition, at the last state board meeting, and Nikki may have mentioned this, they talked about we have been having more and more SELPAs come forward or asking to be, or districts asking to be single district SELPAs. And at the last meeting, we had a SELPA that was 2 districts asked to become their own single district SELPAs, and those were granted. So the board, though, while they did grant it, asked the question of, what does this all mean? And so we've been tasked to work with State Board on looking at examining SELPA, the composition and function, sort of going back to basics and saying, okay, what are we doing as a state so that when the board hears these requests to become a single district SELPA of SELPAs that don't meet size and scope, how should they gauge that? How should they judge that? And so we are doing some research on that. We'll keep you posted. There is an opportunity, and just so you know, when there are opportunities around work groups, we ask that not more than 2 commissioners come, because then it starts to interfere with regulation and statute. Yeah, but we will be having over the next year a setting of our state performance targets. So that's all the indicators, and so every 6 years those indicators are rebenched. And why does that matter? Because the state sets targets, and the districts that are not meeting those targets every year, those are the districts that we monitor and put in status, just like happens with us with our Office of Special Education Programs at the federal level. So it's a requirement that we work with stakeholders to decide what those targets are, to rebench those targets. And so there's an opportunity for stakeholders to be involved in that process. So if you are interested, again, talk to your chair, and you guys, you can have 2 representatives that come to that. And the same thing for our stakeholders that are out there. We also invite you. Please email me or Matt Traverso, and then we can talk about what those meetings will look like. Let's see. There is a bill that came out of some work in the department. That's AB 1172. That's a Fraser bill on non-public schools. That's a bill that we've been working on with our other policymakers. And basically the bottom line on that bill is that it puts further requirements on non-public schools for training around behavior and behavioral supports. and a number of other things. So I encourage you to look at it now and see what the status of it. You can look at the language of what it looks like now. It's heading next week to Senate Education, and it's already passed through the first house. Let's see. So you'll be hearing more later from our friends at Finance and the governor's office. The governor's budget was very warm to students with disabilities again this year, sending a signal that collectively we all need to be working on how we're going to ensure that each and every student has great outcomes. There was a significant amount of funding. Again, they will describe the details of it later today, but just wanted to give a shout out to that because we're really excited about all the opportunities that the budget, not just for the dollars to special ed, but there's a number of other areas around professional learning and early childhood that also, as you know, the special education issue kind of touches every possible part of education, and we're really getting a recognition of that. With regard to the 1%, just going back for a minute, finally to that 1% requirement under our federal partners for not going over the 1%. That, as you know, that bumps up a little bit against individual IEPs, right? So we never want that to supersede an individual's right with their IEP team on whether they're taking the alt, and a parent's right for whether they are taking it as well. However, we are monitoring for that. So in our division, we both monitor for participation, which is the big thing. And if we do not have a certain level of participation, even for our smallest schools, so if you have 10 students with disabilities in your district, and one of them does not participate and the parent opts out, you do not meet the participation requirements under state and federal. And so I'll be honest, what we are doing is for every one of those cases, we are talking to the district and they're making a plan and they're making sure to talk to that one parent. So we're taking it really seriously, but we will do our best, to make sure that everyone knows the why. And we are having those conversations, but at the end of the day, it is really about that individual entitlement and that parent's right. And we will be working with our assessment division around a response and continue to monitor on it. But we do monitor it with great seriousness. And finally, I just wanted to say thank you. We'll do a tribute to Gina at the next meeting for all the time and years that she spent doing this work. But I just want to say that that it's been a real joy these last few years, both working with Gina and really working with all of you. And we count on you to really help showcase what's happening in the state. This is one venue that we have that's statutory that is so critical, and this partnership is so critical in how we move forward. So just hope you know how much we appreciate you and all the work you're doing. We know you don't get paid for this work. You're spending a lot of time coming here and traveling, so just gratitude back to you. And it looks like we're just about at that time, huh, Gina? So I'll be quiet now, but but I do want to say that before Tom comes up, that it's been a real honor and pleasure to have Tom Adams, who's sitting over here now, be the deputy of the Special Education Division, and a huge support for all of the work that we do and all the work that you do out there. So he's still a school board member. He's going to be out there doing the work still. But just wanted to say kudos and thanks and gratitude to you as well, Tom.
Very nice. Thank you, Kristin. Thank you for the content of that report. And before you walk away, I just want to acknowledge the balance that you bring of genuine heart to the conversation with expertise in such an incredibly broad array of content areas. So that is an important balance, and you demonstrate it well. And I have to say also that the opportunity to work with your staff is a privilege. And with so many folks that you guys are navigating and content, it's easy to fall into some adult interactions or adult issues. And I have to say, my experience of working with your staff is that they are collectively focused on the kids. And that is what shows outside of this building. So thank you for your leadership, and thank you to your staff as well. Okay, guys, before we get into the excitement of the Goal Award, we're going to take a 5-minute break and give our guests a time to come to the podium and organize themselves, and we'll reconvene right at 10:32. All right, see you back here. Okay, commissioners, welcome back. Thank you so much. As you can tell, this is definitely a highlight in the room. Definitely a highlight of the year to have the opportunity to look at what schools are doing, look at what innovative practices are out there, and many folks, I appreciate you having you coming and joining us. Thank you to folks in the department for coming downstairs and joining us. Really appreciate that. So to introduce this item, I'd like to hand it over to our Deputy Superintendent, Tom Adams. And Tom, thank you. I know Kristin acknowledged you for your service, and I just also want to piggyback on that and say thank you for your support over the years, your involvement, your engagement. And we know you're not going far, but thank you for spending your last few days, a portion of that with us. So with that, I'll hand it over to you and our State Director, Kristin Wright, to introduce this item.
Well, good morning. I'm Tom Adams, as Deputy Superintendent here at the California Department of Education. And before I go into the script, let me just say thank you for all your help and cooperation throughout the years. It's been, once we started to realize curriculum had to have a UDL design, universal design for learning. You were especially helpful in making sure that happened. I always like to say, if all politics is local, then all of education is personal. And you have that great challenge before you of taking your individual and personal experience and turning it into policy and program. And that's been a great accomplishment of this commission. So I just want to thank you, all of you, for your service and for realizing the most important thing is taking that individual experience and making it into one that's worthwhile and builds a better experience for all our children. So
thank you for that.
So on behalf of Superintendent Tony Thurman and at the request of the Advisory Commission on Special Education, it is my honor to introduce the California Advisory Commission on Special Education's 2019 Grazer Outstanding Achievement and Learning Award recipient, the United Champion Schools program at Trabuco Hills High School in the Saddleback Valley Unified School District. Receiving the award today is Dr. Craig Collins, Trabuco Hills High School principal, and Kara Johnson, Unified Champion School Site Leader, Special Education teacher. And I understand we also have a Saddleback Valley board member who serves on the commission. But I also understand she was very quiet about all this and did nothing to tip the scales one way or the other, and in fact, just let the work of her colleagues stand out. So,
thank you, Tom. So the Grazer Outstanding Achievement and Learning Award was created in 2005, and originally it was funded by Hollywood producer Brian Grazer's family to really recognize exemplary practices in special education and to celebrate programs that serve California youth with disabilities and the professionals who provide those services. So of the many exceptional candidates, the Trabuco Hills High School Unified Champion School program from Saddleback Valley Unified High School District scored the highest. And this was scored by a team of commissioners who went through many, many applications. So the Special Olympics Unified Champion Schools and the CDE, like what's the history there? We have forged an important partnership with the Special Olympics over the years, since teaming up with Special Olympics Northern California and Special Olympics Southern California in early 2016. That year, with the CDE support, Special Olympics was successful in being awarded $1 million to begin initial implementation of this Unified Champion Schools project statewide. Since the budget allocation was not meant to be permanent, it's really vital for schools and local educational agencies to be a partner in this work by supporting neighboring schools and LEAs with this implementation. So we have a lot of this happening across the state. We'd love to see it happen even more. The Special Olympics United Champion Schools program work throughout the state supports local programs like the one that you're going to hear about at Trabuco, allowing the program to continue to flourish and serve as a stellar example of an inclusive program for the rest of the state to replicate. This program at Trabuco Hills has been a trailblazer in the inclusion movement since becoming the first Special Olympic Unified Champion School in Orange County. Unified Champion Schools provide students with and without disabilities the opportunity to participate together in inclusive sports, inclusive programming, and engage in positive peer relationships across all school settings, promoting campus cultures where inclusivity is the norm. Implementation of the United Champion Schools has led to meaningful change campus-wide. In 4 years, the program has led to a complete culture shift on campus. Success of the Unified Champion Schools project at Trabuco has led this school to replicate at other schools within Saddleback Union. For the 2018-19 school year, the district's goal was to add 3 more Unified Champion Schools, and instead was successful in adding 9 more of these Unified Champion Schools. And if they're successful in reaching their 2019-20 goal of adding 2 more Unified Champion Schools, it will mean that 30% of the district's campuses have followed in their footsteps. That's amazing. That they're continuing to develop socially inclusive schools where each and every student learns what he or she needs to work and play together and learn together. So with Unified Sports as the catalyst, this program creates an equal playing field and helps to build that inclusive, positive setting for the students with and without disabilities. So on behalf of the Advisory Commission and our state superintendent and our deputy superintendents, please accept my congratulations for the incredible work you are doing on behalf of students and families. And we really hope that you will be open to sharing your work with other local educational agencies and really serve as a model for us in the state. We will be pointing to you and have a high expectation for you all to continue this in California. To help with that, the Advisory Commission on Special Education will be presenting you with a $5,000 stipend that came out of that initial award from the Grazer family to continue this work and provide you the time to be able to do that. I also want to mention that that we have a representative, Jennifer Johnson from Governor Newsom's office, who's also come to congratulate you. Did you want to say anything?
Good morning, everyone. What a delight to be here today. I would just like to echo Kristin's comments, Dr. Adams' comments. This work is so important for the governor, as it is for everybody in this room. And as we continue to learn and grow, it helps you, it helps all of us do a better job. And so when we hear these stories, we get so moved because it's so important, and it motivates us to see what we can do and really see outside the box, an overused term. But to the extent we can get out and visit and learn from you, it would be our privilege. Congratulations. We know this comes from an idea, and then hard work, and more hard work, and trial and error, and ultimately serving kids do their best work. So thank you so much. Congratulations. Look forward to coming out soon.
Thank you. Thanks for being here, Jen.
So I would ask for our folks to come. Carrie, want to come up, and we'll go ahead and we'll present the award. We'll do a few pictures, and the commissioners, you guys can come down to do the pictures, and then we'll move into the presentation to learn more about the program, so that we have that on the books to be able to share more widely across the state.
Fantastic.
So congratulations. This is your award, and we look forward to to using you as an important model in our state. Great work. Thank you for being here, and congratulations. Okay, so let's have the commissioners come down. It typically works out well if you grab a chair, and then you guys come this way too and stand in front.
If you go just on this bottom part. Okay. Can you get on top? Nice to see you. How's everything going? How are you? Oh, busy. I'm sure. I'm sure.
Sure. If you can look at this one first. And then these other four will have their turn afterwards. Okay. So only look at this one until I say so. Thank you. All right. 1, 2, 3. Take a few more. That should be good. All right. Feel free to look at those ones now.
Over here. Over here.
Oh, you're fine.
Thank you.
Oh, it's Barbara's camera, so yes. Oh, yeah. Oh,
The arrow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Perfect. Amazing. I'll be right.
Well, welcome. Kara, welcome.
Hi, thank you. I will.
Yep, feel free to move that around.
Our whole team, so we'll interject and butt in, and at any time you guys have any comments or questions, anything, just jump in. We love talking about this and spreading our word of unified and inclusion. I know we kind of already made our introductions, but I'm Kara Johnson.
Hi, I'm Gargi Bogle.
I'm Skylar Withen.
Hi, I'm Priscilla Price.
And then, of course, Assistant Principal Amanda Bentley and our Principal Craig Collins. Skylar is a unified athlete, so he was a special ed student in my class for 4 years. He just graduated last week, so this is exciting for me today. We just completed our 4th full year of the Unified Champion School program, so Skylar helped start the program and got to see just the changes and the expansion throughout his whole 4 years. And Priscilla and Gargi are both unified partners. And then as we get through the presentation, you'll see what their role is and they can jump in. So what is the Unified Champion School program? It sounds like everybody is pretty familiar with what it is. Just a global program in partnership with Special Olympics aimed at promoting social inclusion, implementing the 3 components: inclusive youth leadership, unified sports, and whole school engagement. Inclusive youth leadership gives youth with and without disabilities the opportunity to become agents of change in their school, community, and state. As you see here today, they're here with me getting their inclusive youth leadership experience right now. Unified sports and inclusive sports program, where students with and without disabilities play, practice, and compete on sports teams together. And as we go through the presentation, you'll see how it started recreationally to how it's expanded through CIF. Then, of course, whole school engagement, creating a socially inclusive school climate while engaging the entire school community. So when we started year one, Skylar and his parents were in 8th grade, 2015, 8th grade, looking at programs. Where do we want Skylar to go? We were looking at, the best program that we can find to bring the idea of unified sports, because I believe it was fairly new in 2015-16. So they came to us, loved the program, and decided that this is where they wanted to spend their next 4 years of high school. So as a family, Skylar, with his private involvement in Special Olympics, and his parents helped bring the idea of unified sports to our campus. So within that first year, we already had Best Buddies. We were in our 9th year of Best Buddies. Created our site leadership team. Throughout that whole year, it took us a good 6 months to plan just the spring basketball season. How does this look like here? Where is the closest model that we could relate to? I think I spoke to an athletic director at Freedom High School up here in Northern California, just not knowing where this is going to be or what it looked like. So we started with the spring season of basketball, 12 athletes and 12 partners. So out of our entire school of, roughly 3,000 maybe at the time, we had 12 Gen Ed partners involved in the program. And then we planned 2 basketball games during that first year. And here's pictures of the basketball game. I heard there was a school in Placentia, Yorba Linda School District, that was thinking about it as well. So I found out who they were and said, hey, you guys want to play a game? Just come on down and we'll play Sunday, whatever, and just bring some athletes and partners and we'll figure it out. It was a huge success, and you could see a picture on the side how young Skylar was as a freshman. And then year 2. So year 1 was great. We had, got our feet wet with unified sports. Year 2, we decided to really expand and bring it more into our school, doing year-round unified sports. So we started right away with a fall season of unified soccer, unified bowling, and unified basketball. We expanded our leadership team and increased our partners. We had more Gen Ed student involvement in our weekly practices. We started right away with a unified club. Once we got through our spring season, we figured, we need to get involved in Club Rush. We already had Best Buddies. We found we didn't have a big crossover of our Gen Ed students and Best Buddies and the ones that really wanted to participate in inclusive sports with us. So we started a separate unified sports club and had, I think Terry was there, we had like 80 to 100 Gen Ed students sign up immediately. But consistently, we had 35 that really participated in our weekly practices. And it always varies from sport to sport. Some sports are more popular than others. And then, of course, I was able to attend the National Unified Champion School Conference in South Carolina, which was mind-blowing, very exciting to collaborate with different teachers and administrators, parents, students, everybody from around the country. And then we started our first whole school engagement activity, which was our Spread the Word to End the Word school-wide campaign. And then we became an official unified champion school, the Special Olympics. So pictures just from our first Club Rush, where students get to sign up. Here's some pictures from our first unit of unified soccer. We had a game with Tesoro High School Best Buddies. Our students, I try to listen to our Gen Ed students as much as possible. They want to play. They want to compete. They want to play. They want other schools involved. They don't want to just stay within Trabuco. So I'm trying to use resources at the time to reach out to who has Best Buddies, who has anything inclusive. So we reached out to Tesoro, and although we had our unified soccer team, they brought their Best Buddies team, and we just made an inclusive soccer game. And this particular one was actually before, it was a Friday night, like 2 hours before our home football game against Tesoro. So then afterwards, we all went on the sidelines. We had team captains. I think Channel 9 News was there and covered it. It was pretty exciting. And then we had our bowling season. We tried bowling. Bowling was popular back then for unified sports. It's difficult off campus, so our partners dropped a little bit with 15. And then we had a tournament. And then, of course, I was able to attend the South Carolina National Unified Champion Schools Conference. And then we had more basketball games. El Toro High School didn't have Best Buddies or Unify. They're right down the street. And I said, listen, you guys have to find a club, or I don't know what you have. I think they had a Charger Friendship Club at the time. I need 10 partners, 10 athletes, or 5 and 5. Just show up. Let's play a basketball game. What do you think? So we were able to organize that. Do you remember that game? A little bit?
Yeah.
I think you're in there. And you guys were in 8th grade, I believe, right? Yes. Yeah. And then our first school-wide Spread the Word to End the Word campaign. We had some funding from Special Olympics specifically for this campaign. I believe they give us like $300 or $500. We purchased some T-shirts and some bracelets, and we had just to sign the pledge to just be respectful to everyone, and we sold T-shirts to raise money. And then this is where we had our first recognition as a Unified Champion School. Special Olympics came, presented us with a banner, and it was during snack at a pep rally. I think that was the first time we actually did something pep rally, like, during snack, where everybody could hear what it was. And then, of course, at the end of the year, we stayed pretty consistent with our athletes and partners, and they really wanted to celebrate the accomplishments and just what we did with Unified Sports. Even though it still was kind of small within our little bubble in the school, we had a end-of-the-year banquet, which was really exciting. And we were, I think we gave out Unified Sports pajama pants and certificates, and, of course, Chipotle dinner. Okay, and then year 3. Year 3 grew. This was your freshman year, right? Year-round sports continued. We tried to figure out which are the most popular sports that our gen ed students would really want to be involved in. Bowling wasn't as popular, so we tried volleyball. So we did 8 weeks of unified soccer, then unified volleyball, and then unified basketball. And at this point, we're doing it recreationally still as a club. So our practices were Tuesdays at lunch, not very long practices because students had to eat, and then we, played games a little bit, and then the bell rang. And then we would schedule some games. And then this was the year we started Unified Physical Education. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Unified PE, but we started it first last year. We just finished our 2nd year, and it was extremely successful. And we'll get into that as I go through year 3. And then Craig and I were able to attend the National Unified Champions School Conference in San Antonio as well. We continue to expand in year 3. We were included Unified Sports in every single pep rally on campus. There's a fall, winter, and spring sports pep rally. This is where Unified Sports really started getting included with, if we're making up a 2-minute dance or a 30-second shout out or anything or a video, we were included in all of it. Our Unified Leaders, this was our first presentation part of our Unified program, where I had a partner and an athlete, and then Amanda Bentley, who's here today, we went down to San Diego and presented something similar to this, just our year 1 and year 2, and where we're beginning year 3 of the Unified Champion School program and all of the accomplishments that we've had. And then it just continued to expand throughout our school and started tapping into arts. Every year we put on a Dr. Seuss Day, where elementary students from nearby schools come and visit, and we put on different events throughout the day for reading. And our drama department does a Seussical performance, and this was the year that a drama teacher and I were collaborating, and she said, let's include some of your students. Maybe we can do it unified. Maybe we can have 5 or 6 and just join in and dress up in costume and sing and dance, and we'll do the same thing with our students and just be included in the performance. And then the same thing with ceramics. So I think that was in March, and then the ceramics does this annual ceramic shoe show at the end of the year. And then in May, we ended up doing that. We buddied our students up, and we did this inclusive ceramic shoe show, which kind of kicked off our Unified Arts program. And then district-wide, we added 3 more schools to the Unified Champion School program. We did a school-wide respect assembly with a presenter with special needs and a unified pair, and I'll get into that when I show you the slide. And then this was our first time that our Unified Sports athletes, so they recognized all of our senior athletes and partners at the board meeting. So looking at pictures, this is our first Unified, this was actually the very first day of school, Unified PE last year. And my favorite part about Unified PE, when you come and visit or you see pictures, you can't identify who's who. You really can't. When they're engaged and they're inclusive and we're involved in our activities, you have to really look at every single person and think, is that an athlete or part? I don't know. You don't know because everybody is fully engaged. It was awesome first year. It was the first school in California, and we just finished our second year of Unified PE, and I have to say we've had easily over 60 visitors statewide that have come to check out our Unified PE class. And a lot of them have taken back some parts of it and either implemented Unified PE at their school sites or a version of it, or Unified Sports. So it's been really exciting. And I co-teach the class, so we have a gen ed PE teacher that I co-teach with her 5 days a week. And students, it's 50-50 ratio, so students are partnered up. I know Priscilla was in it last year, right, as a freshman. She came in freshman year and signed up for it, and had stayed in it all last year. And at the beginning of this year, I think, yeah. And of course, Skylar was an athlete in the class as well. I don't think you were ever partners, but our students are paired up, and they go through the PE curriculum together. Everybody receives PE credit. Often I think our students might be more engaged in Unified PE than gen ed PE high school. Yeah. And they love it. Everybody wants to come back, and I have to say, our class for next year filled up like March. Once we had our open house showcase with the incoming freshmen, I still get emails and messages from 8th graders coming in, or 9th graders in August, that are just upset and in tears, and the class is full. I didn't know about this. How can I get in there? I need to be on the waiting list. What else can I do? So it's really expanded through, the progression, I guess, of 8th graders coming in. Here's our Unified Sports Club. It just really took off. Every year now, year 3, our Club Rush, we have so many sign-ups. It's very, very popular on campus. And then, of course, last year we had our first Unified Homecoming King and Queen. And it's funny, I love to say that, in year 3, we were in our, 11th year of Best Buddies. Never once have we even been in a conversation or considered, I think, as Homecoming King and Queen. And, of course, doing Unified, now everybody knows what we're doing, and they're involved and engaged inclusively. And, of course, we have our 2 Homecoming King and Queen here. Here's just some pictures from our pep rally, our fall pep rally here, and our spring pep rally. They once was outside in the fall. We do it on the rally stage, and in the spring or the winter in the gym. Here's just pictures from our soccer practice. And we just use the same facilities that the other sports are using. If basketball's in the main gym, we're in the main gym as well. We're out on the field for soccer. And here's a picture when we went to San Diego, spoke at the SELPA conference. Amanda and we had a unified pair. We spent the day in San Diego. And then pictures from unified volleyball in the gym. And you can see in the background here, year 3 is also when we got a lot of our varsity coaches involved as well. That's our head volleyball coach in the back. He would come down during his lunchtime as well, help us with equipment if we needed it, provide us tips. A lot of his volleyball players were involved as well. And then here's basketball. This is when we started having away games. This was really fun. This is at Corona Del Mar High School. We reach out and try to connect with as many schools as we can nearby that are willing to either come to us or we go to them. Either way, our students, like I said, want to play. My students want to play. Our partners want to play. They want to compete and win. And this was the first time, every time we would play a game in year 3, people would say, "Did you guys win?" Like, I don't know. I never even looked at the scoreboard. I have no idea. So remember, one of the games at the end of year 3, I think we were at El Toro, I made it a point after the game to take a picture of the scoreboard because I've never seen it. I just pay attention to the buzzer, so I know when it's halftime or when we rotate students. So this one, it was at El Toro and in our gym. And then this is Craig and I at the conference in San Antonio. This is all of Southern California, this picture. And then I heard Matt, were you at one of these?
I was at the South Carolina one.
Oh, okay. I don't have a group picture from that. There wasn't a lot of us at that one, I don't think, from California. Oh, this is from Seussical Musical. I love this because I have some of my students, we took a picture on the right, and then on the left, that's our whole performance. And again, it's so inclusive, you don't know. You can't tell. They're singing, they're dancing, they're all engaged equally. And here's pictures from our ceramic shoe show buddies. So the ceramic students did a shoe, and we did a shoe, and then they partnered up and got to know each other and wrote about each other, a day in the life of their partner shoes. And I like this picture. When I was putting this together, I'm looking at it, and I'm like, oh my gosh, so Adam's partner here on the left, that's Hetty, who's on our unified track team now, and then on the right, that's Alex, who was my best buddy's president this year, ironically. So I'm like, oh my gosh, so it worked. They had this experience, and then they just stayed with it. And this is year 3. Last year, we added 3 schools in our district. So this is a middle game I hosted. Often we are putting it on, my students and administration and staff at Tribuco, inviting schools to. It's a lot of work to put it on. We've been doing it for a while, so we're more than happy to say, hey, we'll host it. Let's play around with dates. You guys show up. We'll run it. We'll do everything. You come, and let's have the experience. So this is 2 of our middle schools, Rancho Santa Margarita Intermediate and Serrano Intermediate. And then this is a picture of our school-wide assembly. We went on a school-wide assembly to talk about respect. We have, every other year, we have a what if week. It's what if we respect each other, what if we included each other, what if we, I think it changes each day. So this Wednesday, we did what if we respected each other. Everybody wore respect shirts. We had, this is Dustin Plunkett from Special Olympics, who came and spoke to our school about respect. And then there's Priscilla and Eloisa, one of my students, who also spoke about it as well. Gave them another leadership opportunity. And I'm looking here in the front. You see that, Skylar? That's Reese. This kid right here in the front with the jacket. He's got one leg bent. You'll see a picture later. Skylar and Reese ended up, after this, being ceramic shoe show buddies, right? And then last week they spoke at our graduation together. So you'll see a picture of that. And then last year, the end of last year, we had a senior recognition night. Basketball game. We played Westminster High School. And we had so many seniors. I want to say 15 maybe. So again, the students, I love when they speak up and they tell us what they want. They say, we want a senior night. Every other sport that we participated in, everybody else gets a senior night. Can we have our own senior night? And I said, oh, of course. What an awesome idea. So we put together a senior night. And then all of our seniors were recognized at our board meeting last June. That's all of our partners and athletes together. Okay, so last summer, we had a unified pair, Priscilla and Eloisa. You just finished your freshman year, yes. Right? Be selected to represent Southern California at the USA Games in Seattle. And they were part of the youth leadership experience. We didn't play sports representing Southern California, but our pairs were picked to represent the leadership experience. I don't know if you want to maybe share a little bit about what you guys did. So I think was it your first time away for a week?
Yeah, it was.
I remember having conversations with her mom, like, what do you mean? What is this? She's going to go on a plane. What are you talking about? And then when I asked her about this, I didn't even have a conversation with her mom. I asked Priscilla if she can come to Sacramento. And she said, yeah, my mom said yes, like in a quick text message. And I'm like, does she need to talk to me? She's like, no, she's fine.
So I went into Special Olympics, and let's just say that it was incredible. I went in there not knowing really what I was getting myself into. I was just expecting to meet a few people, see the games, go to the opening ceremony. And I remember this one person who told me a piece of wisdom so I can bring back to Unified Sports, because I was going to be an officer the following year. And he told me, when running Unified Sports, do not worry about the quantity of people who join, but the quality. And I think that's what makes our programs at school so special, and I'm just really excited that I was able to be part of this experience.
Wow, nice. Amazing.
And then last summer was also the first time that Southern California put on like a school liaison workshop they hosted in the summer. And it was like in Anaheim or something in the middle of summer. So they invited us, and I had other schools interested. At the time, we had 3. But here, I think we had like 6 or 7. I reached out to my director of special ed and said, hey, they have this workshop. It's free. Can I go ahead and ask other liaisons at our schools that are maybe interested next year, at least if they want to volunteer their time? And they all did, and it was really, really successful. It got everybody motivated about starting the year as a Unified Champion School. And then I just took a screenshot of our district Twitter feed where we were announced as the first Unified Champion School District in Orange County. And in order to become a Unified Champion School District, you have to have at least 10% of your schools sign on to the Unified Champion School program. And for us having 37 schools, it was only adding like a total of 4. And we did it.
Nice.
So starting year 4, this was just this year that we just completed, we expanded so much. It grew. Students were listening. Students wanted more. Students didn't even know at our school that had nothing to do with unified sports approached me last spring, throughout the summer, the beginning of the year. Ms. Johnson, we have to do this. We have to do this. We have to do this. So we did it. We made it all happen. We have a really strong leadership team with our administrators. We have so many teachers involved, so many students, so many departments, that it was, I don't want to say it was easy. It just, our connection was already there. It was just a matter of what is it going to look like at our school. It wasn't a matter of yes or no. It was how is this going to look. So last summer we purchased whole school engagement shirts. For the first 3 years with Special Olympics, you are funded. And part of what we wrote in year 3 was to do more with the whole school engagement. And we set aside some money to purchase shirts for every staff and every student in the school. It says Mustang Country, so that we're all unified. And on the back, it has our logo. It's on the back of the brochure, that little shield. So everybody has it and wears it. And we're going to do it again this year. So all of our new freshmen and new staff are going to get one when they register in August. And then we continued unified sports year-round. We're switching it up a little. Again, with unified flag football, we're going to start first, and then basketball and soccer. Now we're trying to kind of align it. As CIF gets more involved, we're aligning our sports to our varsity sports. Makes it very difficult for facilities and things like that, but we're trying as much as we can to try to align it. And CIF recognizes unified track and field now. I know that, again, our students and us, we were very interested in becoming more competitive, and we wanted more. Skylar was going to be a senior, and he wanted to letter. He wanted that jacket. He wanted a varsity letter. How are we going to get this? So Craig and I met with, and one of our other assistant principals, with the commissioner of CIF, assistant commissioner, some folks from Special Olympics, and we met down at our school in the middle of last summer, like probably exactly today last year, at Claim Jumper for a few hours, and came up with an idea of how we're going to do unified track and field, who's going to host the prelim meet, where it's going to advance to, what it's going to look like. We set a date, and we volunteered to host it, and they said we will officially recognize unified track and field as one of our CIF sports. So that was groundbreaking last summer. And then, of course, year 4, this is the first year that we officially offered unified track and field as a varsity sport. On our campus, sports are 7th period. And if I'm doing a lot of time, you guys can jump in. I don't know. I feel like my voice and getting stuff. Our sports are 7th period. And Craig said, absolutely, let's make room and find a new teacher, a new connection, and co-coach now that track class. 7th period, and we had a whole new group of partners that signed up for it, and just ran it as a varsity sport on our campus. Participated in dual meets, and I'll get into that in another slide. And then this was our first year doing a unified arts club. So a lot of students have been approaching me last spring and the beginning of this year saying, what about arts? We need to do an inclusive arts club. We want to do a performance. We want to do songs and dancing and musicals and this and that. I'm like, oh my gosh, when can I do this? When is another day available? So Wednesdays at lunch, we do unified arts. And then we were approached to do United Sound, which is an inclusive band club. I don't know how familiar you guys are with United Sound. It's an after-school inclusive band club. And that's a whole other group of students that come in and do United Sound. For United Sound, it's very similar to Unified Sports, but it's different. It's a 1-to-3 ratio. So for every one new musician, there's 3 peer mentors. And so then that's 33 other kids on our campus that never did unified sports, never did unified arts, unified track, anything, just band. Just another group on our campus that wanted to be involved in unified. And last year was also the first year that district-wide we hosted unified leaders meetings. I know Skylar and Priscilla were both at those meetings. With 10, we invited 10 schools that participated last year. And it was, we have so much support, district support, board support. They carved out 2 different days for us, gave us subs for the day, and let us spend an entire day collaborating on what this program is and how you can implement it in your schools. How can we work together? How can we look at our youth as leaders? Because every school is different. And it was very, very successful. And we already have them on the calendar for next year. I think it was like April or May. They were asking me, what 2 dates next year do you want to have these meetings? I'm like, I have no idea. Is the calendar out? But we put it on the calendar, and we're ready to go for next year. We expanded our speaking opportunities with our youth leaders. We presented at the NAPEC conference, and Priscilla went with me, right? We had 3 partners, 3 athletes, and myself and our gen ed PE teacher who co-teaches unified PE. So we were able to go down to San Diego and do an hour, 1 to 2 hour presentation on unified PE and unified sports in middle and high schools. So we put on a whole presentation about that. And then we also spoke, and Amanda went with us to the Marietta Valley Unified School District. So all the schools that are reaching out to us and coming to visit our programs, they're asking us to visit them and talk to their people and, speak in their in-services. So we did. We spoke for a little bit, same thing, unified sports and PE in middle and high schools. And then I got to attend the national conference again in San Diego. It was in San Diego this year with our director of special ed, Dr. Diane Clark. So she went with me, and we spent another week trying to figure out what else can we do unified, who else can we meet, what else is out there. And then we hosted our first district-wide school games, where we had it at Trabuco Hills. 9 schools came, spent the day with us in April, and it was on our field, and we just had a whole rotation day of unified sports, different sports rotations. And all of our varsity coaches that we had sports for, they ran it. So our head football coach ran the flag football rotation. Our varsity soccer coach ran the soccer rotation. Our PE teacher ran the unified fitness rotation, and of course our track coach ran the unified track rotation. So everybody, it was so, I hate to say the word easy because it is work, but it wasn't difficult to get the buy-in from other teachers on campus to want to help out and support. And then we had easily over 100 students from our campus get out of class and volunteer in different ways, running events. Of course, our ASB was there, videotaping, our video department, music department, singing the national anthem, everything. So we had a ton of support. And then, of course, we had our board recognition. It was the first time we actually had partners and athletes earn varsity letters in track. And we used the same qualifications as our varsity track team. So if they have to place in the top 2 in an event in a dual meet or score a certain amount of points, we did the exact same. So not all of our athletes and partners earned varsity letters, but the ones that did earned them. And then this is a great video. I don't know. Do what? Yeah, it's just a quick video. I don't know how to do it. So starting this year, as our unified program has grown through all the departments in our school, all their friendships have grown. Students are spending time outside of school together. They're doing things we don't even know about. Paul and Reese spent all this time together. I didn't even know they were training for a marathon and doing all these things outside of school. I thought, oh my God, how wonderful. We need to do a storytelling video about your guys' relationship. So we did, and their friendship. It was amazing.
It looks like we have to sign into it.
Oh.
Yeah. We try to do it at the end.
Okay. All right. It's a good video. I'll play it.
Trust us.
Okay. It's good. Here's just some pictures. He ran a 5K. He pushed Paul in a 5K in an hour and 41 minutes. And there's prom, 10K. Whole school engagement shirts. Unified PE, leadership meetings. I'm sorry, I don't know. This is too fast. Flag football pictures on the right from one of our flag football practices. We did a unified performance of A Christmas Carol. We performed during the day and an evening performance, just as any other drama performance on campus. We had like 60 gen ed students, I want to say 50, and of course my 15 students. Pictures from our different speaking engagements. We involve our community now. We had an Orange County law enforcement basketball game versus our unified basketball team. CIF track. This was pictures from our CIF track team, varsity track team. There's Skylar and his partner Quinn.
Wait, can I just...
Yes.
Skylar is super fast. Oh my gosh. But more than that, it was every meet that we had our boys and girls track team on the sidelines cheering everyone on, and I think that was super, super cool to see. And practice too. Everyone in this picture created bonds and friendships, and it's like a track family.
That's great.
It did go fast. This is pictures from our United Sound practice on the left, and then we performed in the spring concert. So there's pictures of us on the right performing in the spring concert. And I co-taught that with our band director. Just another picture from our speaking. I had to put a picture of Tim Shriver. I was so excited that he was there. Pictures from our school games, where we had all of our schools involved in the Unified Champion School program. They all came with their partners and athletes, so it wasn't just a Special Olympics event. Everything we do is unified, so they have a partner with them. Here's another picture. Board support, tons of board support we have. They come out to a lot of our events. Barbara, President Schwartz, Amanda. CIF, so we had some athletes qualify to the Masters meet at El Camino College. And our goal next year is to get the CIF on board the state to qualify to the state meet in Fresno. So that's our plan. And then we have some, Skylar's wearing his CIF medals. They're awesome. The same medals as all the other CIF Master Meet athletes. It says Unified 100. More pictures. I'm going to get to the graduation so you can speak, Skylar. Here's pictures from our letter recipients. We had an end of the year banquet. It was awesome. They earned their letters, and then they were recognized at the board meeting 2 weeks ago. Oh, Skylar spoke at graduate. It's on YouTube. If you Google Skylar, Trabuco Hills High School graduation, Skylar and Reese, amazing. It was really good. Skylar spoke, and then Reese spoke right after. It was pretty cool. Do you want to share some of your experience?
Sure. I was sorry about my medals. They clean before I talk. I was concerned about that. Well, first of all, my story actually begins before I went to high school. I have an older brother, and all his life he played competitive sports. So he played baseball, football, even lacrosse. Like, nobody plays lacrosse, but he did. So I grew up just going game to game, watching him. And at the point of 8th grade, which was 2014, I was like, no, I want to be like my brother. I want to be on a team, take a bus somewhere, do all these different things. I want to be a part of a team, play sport. So I tried out for my 8th grade school basketball program. And I even remember going up and going to see the team sheet and not seeing my name on there. And I remember falling on my knees and breaking down when my mom watches me. And she was so upset, and so just seeing me defeated just made her feel so like she failed. So she didn't want to give up on me. So she looked around on a few websites, and she found Special Olympics, Southern California. So I went and I tried out. Well, I actually didn't even have to try out. You show up and you're welcomed right away. And that's just Special Olympics. That's not even unified. So in the summer of 2015, after I finished with 8th grade, I went to a program called Generation Unified at the Los Angeles World Games. So you have high schoolers from all over the world. You have high schoolers from Romania, New Jersey, Uruguay, and I had the honor to represent USA for the World Games in Los Angeles. So that's when me and my father came up with unified sports. So we went around the districts after, and we found Kara Johnson and her Best Buddies program. So before my freshman year, we sat down, we spoke with her, and she wanted to start right away. She loved the idea of it, and like she was saying this whole time, like first year we just wanted to see how it would go, see how many kids would show up. So we had a 2-hour basketball practice after school, but not a lot of general education kids came just due because it was after school and they had plans. Some kids would have jobs that they'd have to go, and it would just be too much. So me and Ms. Johnson sat down and brainstormed for like a half an hour, and that's when our light bulb hit. We said, how about we make it during lunch? It's easy, kids can come, and even more of Ms. Johnson's special education kids came and wanted to be a part of it. So that's when it just started to grow and grow and grow. Year 2, since I was so high and just don't laugh. No, I'm on a higher level than everybody else back then. So like everybody else would need help to shoot the ball or like go up the court. So I wanted to step back, but I would still want to be a part of unified sports. So Ms. Johnson actually offered me a announcing position to do at the unified sports basketball games, where I would take a microphone and I would just go, Serrano is now dribbling up the court, he's putting the ball through his legs, or Priscilla goes for a shot and goes in, 3 points. Like, I would just do stuff like that, and everybody would just love it. And I loved it because my goal right now is to actually be a global messenger, which is where I would get to travel around the country or like counties, states, and just speak about my story like I'm doing right now.
Nice.
So it was great practice for speaking, and I really enjoyed doing it. So I waited until like the lower level kids graduated and had everything that they ever wanted, and they loved it. They loved just everything about it. It's a great opportunity that they never got to have. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna cry.
Oh, you're doing great.
So as it grown and we had more sports, like Ms. Johnson said, like with soccer and basketball and flag football, we just wanted to just see how much more we can add and how greater we can make Tribuco. So we added PE, and we added unified arts, and we added just everything that we could fit. So I did a speech once, and I said that I had to go to a party, and it was a Letterman jacket thing. And before now, I never got a Letterman jacket. I've always wanted one, but I could never get one. And I would have to ask my brother if I could wear it. And even though it said my last name on it, it wasn't mine. It didn't say my high school. It didn't say the sport I like to do. It just didn't feel correct to wear. But now I have the opportunity, and I get the chance to just go to parties, and that's a Letterman jacket thing, and I get to wear mine. That I know it's in my closet, and I can grab it, and I don't have to ask permission. And
nice.
Yeah. So at the unified track banquet, I did a small speech, and one of my classmates' grandmothers or relatives came up to me and she said that she loved what I said, and she loved that how it impacted their kids' lives, and that she wanted to thank me from the bottom of her heart, and that meant a lot to me because nobody does that to me that much. And for just her to say that, it just means the world. And seeing, when I look back on the school games where we had Toronto and El Toro and all these different schools going station to station, sport to sport, having fun time. Nobody is different from anybody else. That was the unified sports goal that we wanted to achieve, and I believe that we achieved it. And a teacher, her name is Miss Gus, or as I call her, Miss Gus. She came up to me, and she pulled me aside, and she said, I wanted you to know that you started this. You made this happen with Ms. Johnson's help, but you brought it to her. You created this here. I want to thank you. And I mentioned that to Ms. Johnson, and just she had no idea that she did that, and she just wanted to just email Ms. Gus, and she wanted to say thank you so much for saying that, because Skylar almost cried in my classroom when he was telling me. And being able to do track and field is just amazing, because my dad did track, and I wanted to be a part of track, and I love to run, and I love to do long jump, and I love just the idea of it, and just being able to now do it and not be rejected or not being able not to make the team is and knowing that everybody cares and they're committed to helping you, even when you don't need it, or when they're there for you, and that's what's amazing to see. And being able to stand here and talk to you guys and be wearing that Letterman jacket and having these medals around my neck is just amazing to do. And I was on the relay team, and my relay team has never lost a race ever since I was on it.
Wow.
Which is pretty impressive.
Nice.
And I actually love the unified track so much that I was at a doctor's office, or a doctor's appointment, I'm sorry, and it was like the end of the school day, and I was like, Mom, drop me off. I want to go to unified track. And I want to practice long jump. I want to. Take me, please. And she's like, okay, I will. And I was so happy, because unified track and unified sports is just everything to me. Just to see how it started from just not having anybody go to these basketball practices because after school, now having all these different programs a part of it is just amazing. And just I even got a personal record, so I got my best long jump I've ever had in the track season in CIF in front of in front of 10,000 people, tens of thousands of people that were there, and just be able to go with the actual kids that actually qualified is just amazing too. And when I was with Reese and Ms. Johnson said, you guys should do a unified graduation speech, I wanted to do it right away. I wanted to start writing my speech right when she asked me.
You decided last time.
And
Nice.
me and Reese sat down and we wrote a speech and we rehearsed it and we practiced. And I got up there and I saw 600 seniors and who knows how many were in the stands staring at me. Then Reese said, it's okay, you got this, go ahead. He had my back, I knew he was right there. I took a deep breath away from the mic so nobody heard me breathing.
Nice.
And I spoke, and I wanted to stand an ovation, and I got it.
Nice. Very
That's
nice.
I got a plane to catch. I love you.
I think
Fantastic. Oh, thank you.
Yes, I just more pictures of ongoing board support. Where to start, and this is the end, but you have a brochure. Oh, just okay. My email's deleted, but thank you guys.
We see it on there, yes. So I just want to say thank you. First of all, congratulations and thank you so much. And you saw Barbara; she had to leave. I know, and there she is. Let me just say that
Tell them how wonderful they are.
I will try to channel Barbara and.
A few tears.
Oh yeah. So, and you see a few of us leaving for flights. So, I know that they wish they could stay for the full presentation. But let me just start before I open it up by saying that, we spend a couple days here every few months, and we hear about the incredible amounts of challenges that high schoolers face. And you guys are leaders. And the way that you just spoke at the mic, you are a natural. You're a natural, even when you got nervous, right? I wish we all had those same techniques when we get nervous of how to sort of slow it down and breathe and then keep going. You guys are role models, and you're role models on your campus, and I'm so excited to just think about what your future holds. So thank you for being leaders and being brave, and your smiles say it all. So thank you. So let me open it up to other commissioners. April. Say that again? Oh, yeah. So maybe we'll start with April and go around.
So first I want to let you know that I'm a board member for Special Olympics for Southern California. And so I immediately sent the link over to Bill Schuman, who's the CEO. And so I'm sure he's watching. And I was videotaping because when you were speaking, I thought of Global Messenger. I really did, and then you mentioned it, and obviously you know who Destin is, and got the opportunity to talk with him. So with our social media and our videos here, maybe we can let Bill see that, because I think you're phenomenal. And I'll use your words. Your words you used a lot today was amazing. I think you are absolutely amazing, and I think some of us who have our own kiddos with special needs, like myself, who just started high school, I hope to follow in your footsteps and have that Letterman jacket when she's a senior. And she's cheerleading, because the sport will become a CIF sport. We're working on that as cheerleading is launched out next year. But I just want to, say that I think that you're doing a wonderful job. That first school that you had your participation basketball was actually Esperanza, which was the first unified sports in the Placentia Linda School District, and now we have our second one, which is El Dorado, that's going to be starting this year. And so, and I know this is televised, but I took video because I'm hoping to send it to the head of special education in our district, as well as the teachers, to show how amazing of a program that you're doing. And they could not do it without all the volunteers and young students like yourselves. That I can already see you guys are going to do wonderful things, and we couldn't do it without the teachers and the administration and the support. I mean, that's hard to get everybody on board to do that. And so kudos and thank you for all that you're doing. It's wonderful. I'd say more if I could, but I'm sure everybody else has stuff to say as well.
Thank you. Thanks for that, April. David.
Thank you so much for sharing. And I want to reiterate, there were a number of exemplary programs that we reviewed for the Goal Award. I got to tell you, reading your application, I had to read it a couple times, and I cried as I read it, because it was just, the work that you're doing is so meaningful. And I remember as a child going to watch my uncle participate in Special Olympics and cheering for him at Special Olympics, and then he would come and cheer for me at my games, but we never got to compete and practice together. And that's the beauty of what you're accomplishing. And so hearing you, Priscilla, and Gargi, even though you were trying to stay away from the mic, but just the commitment to another peer, a student, it's so important. And we spend a lot of time talking about backward mapping and transition, and the piece of creating lifelong friendships and relationships is also part of inclusion. And so knowing and just seeing you and Reese, you're going to be friends for a long time. That's part of special education as well, and I'm just so overjoyed to know about the work you're doing down in the area, because things don't grow this quickly in school. Things don't change and grow this quickly in 4 years, so it's just a testament to your commitment and passion. And the last thought I would leave is, Skylar, you earned those medals. You are a champion. You wear them wherever you want. Make sure they bang around.
Noise, yeah.
Because they also represent an impact that you've made in the lives of hundreds of kids, adults, and their families who also wanted to be a part of something and compete. And because of the vision and support of your family and the administrators, you're doing lots of great things for lots of good people. So thank you.
Thanks, David.
I want to thank you, too. You know, we talk a lot about the word inclusiveness and making sure that's happening for all of our kids. You guys are the example. You're like so beautiful in how we're bringing everyone together, being a part together. I just was overwhelmed and just terrific. Thank you so much for being one of those lights that others can look at when we talk about inclusiveness, how it needs to look and what it does. Shining star is just beautiful. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Michelle?
So I was one of the fortunate ones who got to read your application, and there were many wonderful programs, but yours was outstanding. And Kara, as a teacher, I know how much energy and enthusiasm and creativity it takes to put together even the first year's program, let alone to expand it the way you did and to keep it going. And then to be a good teacher on top of it and all the other things that you have to do, right? And I bet you're writing IEPs and other stuff. So it's so much commitment that I want to make sure we're acknowledging that it is so above and beyond. And really, your school district is so fortunate to have you. They know that, though. Trust me, they do. And then I just want to comment on your principal and the assistant principals, because nothing in a school happens without your support. And you guys are the ones who create a culture that teachers who are this talented want to share their gifts because they're supported. So you're standing in the background over there, but I know. And I just want to make sure everybody else does too. Okay, thank you.
I'm going to just say thank you for all your hard work. And truly, it is something great to be able to say we have something to point to as a shining light as far as a best practice across the state. So thank you. I know you guys are hungry.
Thank you.
Again, thank you very much. Again, being a change agent is not easy. You guys took it, and the school administrators also, were part of this whole process. We're engaging in those conversations as well. And I think overall, just teaching empathy and teaching life lessons. It's like a lifelong, as Steve was saying over there, David was saying, over there, was more about, teaching empathy, tolerance, and being able to get along in life and just being all part of one, just being united together. So good job. This is overwhelming. Yes, very good.
Wow. Well, that's one thing I gotta say. Wow. Growing up, I always wanted to be inclusive with people with disabilities, and growing up, I didn't have that. I was bullied a lot, and I didn't have that connection with this. So this, to me, is incredible, because I wanted that as a kid, as a child, and as a fellow student myself. I just graduated high school, so congratulations, man. Congrats. It's amazing. It's incredible. You started this. You got it to where I never pictured, and I don't think anybody pictured at high school level where they would be in their life. And it's incredible how, at the young age you made this. And this all happened because of you and the people that you're friends with here and everyone here in this room. So I'm proud of you for that. And wear those medals with pride. Like you said, wear those anywhere. Wear those to the store, wear them anywhere. Rock them, and I'm proud. That's amazing.
Okay, I just wanted to add, so unified sports or unified track and field, all of it combined makes this special program, but it doesn't just end at school is what people need to understand. that whenever they go to Target or Walmart or wherever they go, to the beach, and they see someone, treat them with kindness and respect, the R word, respect, wherever you go, not just school or, you know, anywhere where there's an administrator around. It's just wherever you go, just be respectful.
Nice.
I think we're going to try to play the video, so back to that.
While you're getting ready to do that, I just want to say, you know, we talk a lot about adult behavior up here, and you guys give, I think I'll speak for everyone, a great deal of hope for the future. And that hopefully we're not going to have so many conversations about including kids and the kind of things that we have to say when you guys are actually living it. So thank you. We look forward to seeing your video. And after the video's done, we invite those and the audience members, too, to come have lunch right after. What room is it in, Matt?
We're in 1801.
Okay, so it's just,
shepherd people over.
yeah, it's on this floor. So thanks again for coming.
Cool.
Yeah, I think it's. Oh, well, maybe it's not on YouTube. This isn't
You're
the.
gonna have to take tribute down.
Oh.
Because it's on the morning show.
Oh, it was, right?
Yeah.
You want to?
Oh, I don't know what day.
Is it frozen?
No, you got to use the.
Oh. Yeah.
Do you want
Oh, that's a graduation. I was gonna play the Paul and Reese's inclusion video.
There's that one if you want to show them.
No, there was the one that shows their friendship.
Yeah,
that
yeah.
storytelling.
Okay.
Maybe it's blocked now.
What is it called?
That's okay. If we don't, I'll try one more time. It's not gonna work. Okay, let me try. I keep doing that. Sorry, I'll try one more. Is another account? So. Oh, is it on my Google Drive? Oh. Where would it be?
I mean, if you put this
Oh.
in April, it'll be in any of them. How could it just go for April?
Oh gosh, see, I don't know how to. All my passwords are saved. Maybe I shouldn't say it.
All my passwords are saved. Oh,
They work.
No. Can everybody see what I'm doing?
They can't. They don't know your password. You're good.
Oh, there it is.
There we go.
Okay, here we go.
We just went to Disneyland, and that was through Unified, right? We got the tickets through that.
Yeah.
Paul got me an extra ticket, and we went on the Incredicoaster. But we did like every ride, and the Cars ride too. But yeah, it's crazy how our friendship has grown in only less than a year. So that's kind of how we met. Yeah. So wait, when is that? The first weekend in May.
Yeah.
Saturday? Sunday? So, first Sunday in May, we're doing a half marathon at an OC half marathon. And so, Paul has like another wheelchair that his dad built, and it's like wooden, and it's all like aerodynamic and all that good stuff. And we train just like anyone else would train.
Thank you for waking me up. Thank you for breaking it down.
I love most about Paul is that he's really taught me the importance of not complaining, because we all have different things that we go through, but it's not worth complaining about them. I think it's the importance of just taking what you have and making the most of it and having fun and laughing and messing with people, pulling jokes on people, and just making the most of what you have. And Paul does that every day. So, that's why I love Paul.
Very nice. Thank you for sharing that. And you said that was on your YouTube channel? Reese and Paul. You can't find it. Okay. Well, thank you for sharing, and thank you guys for coming, and congratulations on the work you're doing, and don't stop. So we welcome you to join us for lunch. So Matt, you want to steer us? And folks, we will see you back here at 1 o'clock. About 1 o'clock. Yeah, thanks. Okay, commissioners, welcome back. Again, like, what an incredible component to the advisory commission. It is, I think, one of my favorite parts of our work is getting to see firsthand kids, right, and the work that they're doing and the ownership that they have over their programs and the pride, right, the pride that they had for their accomplishments was pretty incredible. So thank you for your part in that. Thank you, David. Thank you, Michelle, for being readers. Thank you, Steve, for being a reader. Really appreciate that. Awesome. All right, we are moving into item number 12. That is Voices from the Field. And again, this is an opportunity for us to, as commissioners, to hear from those stakeholders that are with us regularly, that weigh in on specific issues, so that we can put agendas together that are really reflective of the challenges that are happening out there on the ground. So we send out a prompt. The prompt is not limited to just the folks that we send it to. It happens to be the folks that are most engaged with us, but it's always our hope that folks forward this to others. The prompt this time was, as the Advisory Commission on Special Ed welcomes in new leadership, congrats Summer and David, what would you like them to know regarding your organization, and what does your organization believe should be areas of focus over the coming school year? So, Matt, any questions, thoughts before we jump in?
No, just one thing. I forwarded you all the California Teacher Association feedback for this question earlier today already. Kelly
Yes,
Connell
thank
Sandler.
you for that.
And then I have the feedback from the SELP organization as well. SELP was not here.
Okay, great.
And so I will hand that out as well, and then we can go into our first guest is not here. That's Kelly Connell Sandler. So, 0 for 1. I believe number 2 is here. So, and that's Kara Shikowski, Executive Director, Special Education Administrators County Offices.
Great.
And as always, this is untimed. So, yeah, I have.
Okay. Perfect. Welcome.
The first thing I would like to share with you is our excitement about being able to participate in these meetings and be here. SECO has made a commitment, and we had a liaison, Ann Vesey, who retired, and it was very important to our group that someone be assigned who will commit to being here, and that person's me for right now. I'm very excited about it. To answer the first part of the question, what would we like for you to know about us? I think the most important piece is that we are committed to access, equity, inclusion for all students. We have been, and we were just talking a few minutes ago about getting out of silos. And a lot of our conversation these days at SECO is about how do we get out of silos and include all stakeholders in the conversations that we're having, because these efforts that we're making can be good for all kids. So that's the first thing. I think we also see ourselves as having a couple of parts to our job. The first part would be, as county office administrators, we're generally serving students who have historically been underserved, whether they are in court schools, community schools, or have come to the county office to participate in a school or a program for a particular special ed type of issue. The second part of our job is, and we're equally committed to this part, is to support and serve school districts as well. This year, what that's looked like for many of us has been being a part of the differentiated assistance teams that are going out to the school districts and working to support them through that process. The second part of your question about what areas of focus do we believe are important to continue into this next year, I was also saying this earlier. I was amazed and encouraged and just so happy to hear yesterday that all of the conversations that you all had, we're having as well. And so when you're talking about mental health, we're talking about mental health and how to get services to kids. And when you're talking about pathways to a diploma, that's also an issue for us that we've been talking about. And so we love the support that you're providing in those areas. Shiloh comes and presents to SECO all the time, and she is a fabulous resource for us, and we really appreciate the recognition that the California accountability system looks different for county offices. And so that recognition and making those proposed changes, we appreciate, and we appreciate the expectation of shared accountability. We have also, however, had the same type of conversation that you had yesterday about the what ifs. Like, what if programs do shut down because kids go back to district? What if we need to, how can we collaborate better with districts to ensure that the program is working for kids first, and then also for the district and for the county office? So we're having the same exact discussions that you are having, and we believe that these should be continued into the new year as well. And finally, what I would say is every July, SECO has their annual planning meeting for the upcoming school year. And so what I would expect is that in August, when I come back, I would have more updates for you regarding specific areas of focus that we will choose in July.
Nice. Great. Well, thank you. It's great to get to know you, and welcome to the commission.
Thank you. Okay, next we have Ana Da Silva, the Family Empowerment Center Grant Director for West Side Family Resource Center, and I believe this is the Family Empowerment Center response as a whole.
Nice. Welcome, Ana.
Good afternoon, esteemed commission members, and I just want to thank you, Ms. Plate, for being such an amazing leader in the past year and being so supportive of us and being very supportive of our community.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Ana Da Silva, and I'm here on behalf of the Empowerment Centers. As the Advisory Commission on Special Education welcomes a new leadership, we would like them to know that we're here for a lot of the stuff that Kara had mentioned, parent support, parent involvement. We are very concerned with inclusion, mental health support for our students. Cindy Chandler from Family Soup would like you to know that families in California need access to parent-to-parent support, IEP support, disability information, transition opportunities, including competitive and integrated employment. We need to collaboration through establishment of family empowerment centers statewide as legislated by SB 511 in 2001. We will not only reduce litigation through FECs, but we will also empower parents to be their students' best advocate and increase positive outcomes for students with disabilities. For our WFREC, which is our West Side Family Resource Center, we would like you to know that in addition to parent-to-parent support, the LA area has 7 regional centers, but we only have 3 FECs, family, which leaves a lot of ground to be covered. And it is impossible to cover all the areas that do not have a family empowerment center. We would also like you to help us focus on the importance of scientific research that finds that kids with and without disabilities do better academically and socially when educated in inclusive settings. Now that we know better, we must do better for our students. If we begin with preschoolers, you know, in an inclusive setting, those adults will work harder to make the community, you know, help people with disabilities be incorporated into, you know, work settings and community settings. The research also shows that kids with disabilities educated in inclusive settings do better with meaningful employment as adults. We know that on the flip side, segregation in early life leads to greater risk of segregation and, you know, poverty, like Richard had mentioned yesterday. Later in life, the CBS rules requires that adults are integrated into their community to the fullest as adults, but if we don't start early enough, then it becomes harder for them. So it's only fair that we prepare students as early as possible. Thank you so much for your time. You guys have a wonderful day.
Thanks so much for being here. Okay, other voices from the field. Matt?
I do not believe we do.
Okay, let's, we're going to go ahead. We're going to skip around. So that was item number 12. If folks are okay with it, I'm going to jump to item number 14. That's general public comment. Matt, do we have any general public commenters? Okay. Then let's go ahead and jump to item number 15. This is our agenda building for upcoming meeting. So we are, thank you so much, going into summer, and we'll be working with our new leadership going into the August meeting, but there's a few items that we've talked about over the last couple of days that we probably want to make sure is on that list. So we always have an assessment item. We always have an accountability item. Yesterday we talked about, I think the mental health subcommittee recommended that we do a look back or a lessons learned on CCRs. CCR stands for? Thank you. So, so now that we've had the continuum of care reform and STRTP, short-term residential treatment programs, maybe taking an assessment of where are we now. And the subcommittee recommended a panel that represented both sides. So somebody from Department of Social Services and somebody from education. So maybe we make sure that's part of the list. We talked about having a follow-up conversation, most likely in our committee meetings, around alternative diplomas. We talked about, I think Kristin in her update recommended maybe we get an update from the SELPA leads on what their work looks like and where they're headed, where they've been, where they are headed. And then we also need to think about, as folks are transitioning or terming out in December, I know Mildred wanted us to make sure that folks are thinking about who might be interested in leading our mental health subcommittee should she term out starting in January of 2020. So she is planning ahead like always. So those are just a few things. Let me open it up to the group and see what other items have been on your mind, have resonated that we should be thinking about going into August. Stephen.
I'd like to get an update on the special ed credentialing. What's happening, where we're at with it, the status, and I know that I wasn't clear on whether it was being approved in another year of it exactly, or are we actually in the piece about implementing the the pathways that we have determined that we're going to be for special ed. So just an update on special ed credentialing.
Love that.
Mm-hmm.
Right. We have had them most meetings. We've had them because I know that there's been a lot of discussion happening. So that's a great suggestion. Other folks?
Just clarification, when we talked about the SELPA leads, we were talking about the content leads and not the system improvement leads. Just clarifying.
Which leads?
Which groups, yeah.
Yeah.
Or all.
I think, yeah, I think it'd be good to have all also.
Early on, I thought. No. Yeah, I think that was.
Yeah, maybe that when they were announced is when they came. Yeah. Perfect. Other suggestions? Great. Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Just hearing, I know the MTSS initiative is in year 4 now.
Mm-hmm.
So just curious, like, if they're at a place to report out any work that's happening, or if there are any model sites, or
that's a great,
how that work is going.
That's great. So in an update, where are we now? Nice. Appreciate that. Any other thoughts, suggestions? Okay, great. So nice job, everyone. So we are going to go ahead and take a break, and then reconvene in about, let's say, 5 minutes, and then we'll be in our final item for the day with the Department of Finance. So see you back in 5 minutes. Okay, commissioners, welcome back. We are now moving into our final item of the day. We are on item number 13, and I am excited to welcome Lisa Mierzinski and Michelle, help me pronounce your last name.
Valdivia.
Valdivia, to the podium. Thank you. Welcome.
Hello, good afternoon. Again, Lisa Mierzinski. I'm with the Department of Finance, and my colleague Michelle Valdivia has special education now, so you will be seeing her a lot in the coming months. So I wanted to quickly kind of just give you, last time I was here, I kind of gave you an overview of what was going on with the state budget in its entirety, more specifically Proposition 98, with which special education is funded. So again, the guarantee continues to grow. It grew a little over $1 billion, actually just shy of $3 billion from 1819 to 1920. But this is not kind of the historic growth we've seen over the last 7 or 8 years. And the reason for that is while revenues continue to grow, the Proposition 90 guarantee is kind of in a state of modest growth because we've paid off what's known as maintenance factors. So this debt that was owed during the recession, a balance owed to schools, nearly $12 billion has now since been paid. And so now all growth is really going to be reflective of growth in revenues. So another thing that had kind of surprised us, ooh, what did I do?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. That was kind of cool, though. Another thing that kind of surprised us very late in the budget is that Proposition 98 hit what was called a required deposit into the public school system stabilization account. And this account, a lot of people, including myself, are on record as saying this will never happen. So it was a lot of fun explaining that. But it did happen. And so what's happening right now in the guarantee is that should revenues go up from now, let's say in 1920, if we get new forecasts next year and revenues go up, any amount now, dollar for dollar, will be deposited into the reserve. So we're not going to see any increases in revenue or any increase in Proposition 98 for 1920. And if they go down, again, it'll be deposits taken out of the reserve. It'll be refunded back to schools. But then it's really mostly downside now for 1920. If revenues go down, the guarantee's going to go down. And so it's something that we're kind of cautious about, and we'll have to keep an eye on. So going forward, go ahead.
System stabilization account?
Yeah, so on the state level, I've heard you've probably heard of the budget stabilization account, the BSA, Proposition 2. So a few years ago, there was a proposition that passed at the statewide. There was the statewide, that required anything over 8.5% of capital gains. So anytime capital gains were above like our statewide average, that amount, 50% gets put into this rainy day fund, and the other 50% goes to paying down debts. Now that's at the statewide level. In addition, at that point in time, Proposition 2 passed. There was a Prop 98 stabilization rainy day account that passed. And it really also says when capital gains are above 8.5% of total revenues, and Proposition 98 is in a test one, and again, this is very difficult to get in a test one, and we can pay for growth and COLA and the guarantee, then any difference between growth and COLA and that additional amount funded by the 8.5% will go into this rainy day account. And so we kind of hit all of the, and the other thing that was triggered a few years back is we had to pay all the maintenance factor prior to 13-14 off. So we kind of just hit the perfect storm. Everything got checked. And so that deposit of $389 million is a Proposition 98 general fund amount that gets put away and put aside for a point when school districts, when the guarantee can no longer afford the growth in COLA, that amount will be pulled out and put towards schools. So it's,
Thank you.
And so I think I wanted to caution with that just because we are seeing this now kind of come into play. The growth and guarantee is really basically covering our cost of COLA. So the special education augmentation that happens is really significant. The fact that the legislature, the governor's office, the administration, everyone was in agreement. We didn't agree how to spend the money at first, but we eventually all got there on putting this money aside for special education. And Michelle will kind of get into it a little bit more. But other than that, the only other significant was for ACES, and that was a $50 million augmentation for ACES. So anyway,
Yeah, so I'm going to get a little bit further into the special education funding, and I just kind of want to give a disclaimer, right? This presentation is really on special education. There were a lot of things that happen in the education budget and in the budget largely that do impact students with disabilities, right? It might not be in this presentation, but things like teacher preparation, there were a lot of like early learning and care, because we know this administration, this governor really cares about the earliest years. And so those things are not covered in this presentation, but if you have questions on that, we'd be more than happy to reach out or, connect you with the right folks on that, definitely. So for special education, there's a historic $6 billion, which includes about $1.3 billion in federal funds, and then a base funding about $4 billion state funds. This doesn't include these two new kind of funding sources that were created in this budget, which are a statewide base rate of about $153 million, and then early intervention preschool add-on, which is about almost $500 million. And I'll get a little bit more into these in the next slide. So the special education statewide base rate, it provides $150 million to bring all the SELPAs that are not at the statewide target rate up to that rate, right? So we know that some SELPAs out there are not even funded at the statewide target rate, and we have that target rate for a reason, and so this funding is really just leveling up those SELPAs. SELPAs that are funded above that will not be impacted at all. They will continue to receive their funding at the rate that they're funded. And the administration really saw this as an equity issue, right? There's no real reason that SELPA should be funded below the STR. It just doesn't, it doesn't really make sense. So it's just bringing up those SELPAs. And then the really exciting part, I guess the other part is exciting too, but the really exciting part is the special education preschool add-on, which is almost $500 million to school districts serving children ages 3 to 5 with a disability. We know that, we provide federal funding, but there's not really state funding to target this population, and we know that the outcomes we know all the positive outcomes that come with targeting more resources and more services to this needy population. And so this funding is going to go out on a per pupil basis. It's going to go to school districts, so it will not go to SELPAs. And the funding can be used to supplant or supplement existing funds, really according to local needs, right? We know that school districts have an obligation to serve this population, but right now they're not really receiving that funding to meet that need, and so this funding will go to that.
So, clarification, are these funds restricted to special ed preschool students in terms of use of the dollars, or can they be used for like 5 to 22-year-olds as well in terms of the supplement and supplant?
Yeah, they can be used for the 5 through 22 as well. It's just going out based on the number of 3 to 5-year-olds that are currently being served.
And then, so I should mention both of these two pieces are contingent upon reforms to come in the 2020 budget, right? So we know special education is an area that requires a lot of reforms, and so there was an agreement that was made amongst the administration and the legislature that moving forward, we are going to continue to provide this funding, this level of funding, but how it looks like can be a little different. And we're going to enact reforms in the 2020 budget. And so some of the areas that we're looking at are areas such as SELPA accountability. We know that some SELPAs have a role to play, right, in the statewide system of support with the SELPA leads. But I think a lot of people have questions about what is the role of SELPAs, right? How are they supporting our students? So we're going to look at reforms in that area. Some of the other areas that we're looking at are increasing inclusive practices. I know that this body and just a lot of people have advocated for more inclusive practices. That is how we get, that is how we merge general education and special education more holistically, right? Those inclusive practices. So we're looking at that. And also another area is disproportionality, which is a problem in our state. These are just, this is not an extensive list of some of the reforms that are to come. These are just some of the things that we're thinking about. Oh, and I think Lisa always says this better than I do, but I think kind of the important message is that, you know, there are changes that are coming, and they're long overdue because students with disabilities need that extra support, and we need to improve the outcomes of these students, right? And so I think this is really a commitment from the administration, from the legislature, that those changes are coming. And so that's really exciting.
Nice. Can I ask a question? Yeah. Can you go back to the preschool slide? I want to, let's see. So does the second bullet says districts serving children ages 3 to 5 in preschool, or would a TK program also work? If you didn't have preschool but you just had TK and you serve 5-year-olds, would you be able to request that money, or would you be eligible for those funds?
You would receive that money in TK until so if they're in the pre-TK, they would receive the money. So in other words, they don't officially qualify for ETK, sorry. Language over here. So they don't officially qualify for TK, but they're in the TK, they would get this funding.
Okay.
And then if they qualify for TK, they will be drawing down their LCFF, we will be drawing down AB 602. So that will be their funding for these students at that point in time.
I see. Okay, thank you for clarifying. Yes, Mildred.
So just again, I heard David's question, but didn't understand the answer. So that means that the money's earmarked for preschool, but it can be used for other than preschool?
It's not earmarked. I don't think it's earmarked. I think that's where the count comes from.
They're giving you more money the more preschool kids you're serving, and that way you can use it for anything, but they're trying to encourage you to serve more preschool kids.
I think also, I mean, if you think about this population's been served on the school district budgets now for many years without any additional funding from state.
Correct, yeah.
And small amount of dollars federal.
Yeah.
So this is really giving back the money. It's very flexible, and we did this so because we don't want locals, if they don't need to increase their MOE if not necessary. And we also wanted to, but I think this is very important. At the state level, we are increasing our state level MOE. We consider this a contribution to special education, and it is part of our MOE. But at the local level, we wanted them to have a lot of flexibility with this funding to either backfill the funding that they were already putting out for these students or augment additional programs and services. The intent of this administration is to really kind of incentivize or to try to get earlier intervention services to the extent a district would like to take this money and provide more funding or more services to maybe students, a block of students that are not quite identified as special education yet, but possibly are in a group that are highly likely to be identified, then this funding can be used for that. Wouldn't count as a special education dollar, but would definitely benefit those students. So it's very flexible. And also, as Michelle had mentioned, it's also going to be relooked at over this next year on how the funding's going out and what the intent and purpose of this funding is.
Okay, so now I'm more confused.
I'm so I tend to do that.
So no, and my confusion is because I just know from you know, being if funds are not earmarked, if it goes to the district, and this is not going through the SELPA, this is my understanding, goes straight to the district, then does that mean that this, and no offense to any CTA people that are still here, but does this mean then this amount of money is can also be captured for raises?
I don't think so. I think the way that it's structured from the state going to the SELPA is that it would be It's similar. Well, so the money that they're already providing a lot for special education is already earmarked for raises, right? I mean, this is just funding.
That's not how pots of money work in terms of bargaining, and we have so many districts now that are looking at bargaining issues. And I would just hate to have the monies be not have some quote-unquote earmark or brand for special education, and then it goes on the table.
I see what you're saying, yes. And I would stress this is a one-time funding pot at your local level, and that it should not be used for an ongoing basis. So if they're going to put this in the bargaining table, they need to understand it's one time. We don't know what the distribution will look like next year, so they could be setting themselves up for an issue.
Okay. This is
on the state funding. I guess this is the clarification we need to make. Take over anytime if I'm getting myself in a loop here. The ongoing funding at the state level is a commitment. It will be ongoing funding. The distribution to the local level will be, it's to be determined. So the local level distribution, right. So on a one-time basis for those type of things, I would be very remiss if I were a school district if I put that on the bargaining table.
Okay. So then that also says that if in fact you are looking at enhancing your preschool and also certainly backfilling, whereas you only got so much money in terms of federal dollars, then they really would only be backfilling it for 1 year because it's one-time money.
I mean, if you think about it, it's likely to be some sort of ongoing funding that goes out to everyone at some point. We just really have not. At the state level, we really need to kind of, it's been years since this has been looked at, the 602. You think about how many years. So it really is the state's time to take a look at our funding at the state level, reassess, and figure out how best to get this money out to districts in a more equitable manner. And so we're kind of taking all the pots of funding, and we'll be looking at everything and how to distribute that in the upcoming year.
Okay, thank you. April, I saw your hand too.
That's the question. I guess my only other question is it's earmarked and it's it can be used. It still will only be within special education. It won't be used in other areas. We talk about raises. Yeah, right. Yeah. So I guess I'm asking.
Right at the local level, it's a very flexible dollar at the local level for this year only. With the understanding that it's special education dollars coming down from the state and will likely be special education dollars eventually, but right now it's flexible, and again, I don't even know if I can get to you, but we just left it very flexible for this next coming year until we have a chance at the state level to really relook at it.
David.
And thank you for the clarification. So would it be fair to say that the preschool students and special ed are just part of the methodology, not part of the restrictions around the use of the dollars? Okay. Thank you.
And I think that preschool was thought of because of this whole movement towards early intervention. So when it was something that the legislature, the administration, the governor's office, everyone kind of were aligned. When we really kind of laid it out there and were compromising on what we all agreed upon, there was a few things. And the early intervention preschool. Oh, they don't really want to hear from me. That was a consensus. So it's likely, and again, I can't guarantee anything, but it's likely that will continue to be part of the formula moving forward. We just needed more time.
Sure. Thank you for clarifying.
And then kind of I
had one question on that slide. So the third bullet, state funding levels remain the same, but local rates may look different. Is that reflecting that it's still in flux in terms of? Okay.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much what we just settled. And then the last significant piece in special education is the creation of an interagency collaborative. So we're investing $500,000 one time to bring kind of different folks to the table, including the Department of Education, Department of Healthcare Services, DBS, and local entities to really tackle these two issues that have been ongoing that we really think we can kind of address and fix, which are how to better leverage federal dollars, right, including Medi-Cal dollars, and how to improve the transition of 3-year-olds from regional centers to LEAs. I think these are kind of two big pieces that bleed into a lot of other things, right? It bleeds into early intervention. The Medi-Cal piece bleeds into like how to fund mental health services. And so the collaborative is really bringing the experts to the table to address these two issues.
Nice. I don't know if you guys watched our any portion of the day yesterday, but the majority of our presenters came from Medi-Cal, Medicaid, the Accountability and Oversight Commission, and the Mental Health Services Act. So we had them all yesterday, so excited to see that this is a priority.
And then I think that's it. Yeah. If you have any questions, we're here.
So tell us, so that's a lot of information. Thank you for that. And I know we've all probably read it and tried to digest the different pieces. Tell us what is next for you guys. What are the next steps as you venture into further defining some of these areas?
I think, and Lisa and I were talking about this, I think what's next is really kind of reaching out to the experts, which include you all, right, on what are the reforms that you all want to see in the 2020 budget. I think, and especially for me, since I'm pretty new to special education, it is really important to hear the voices of folks on the ground. And so I think we're planning some site visits. We're just planning on getting together with our counterparts in the legislature and really digging in this summer.
Great.
Yeah.
Matt, is the PowerPoint in the... Yeah, we can send it out. And then can you give us an idea of timeline? So are you looking to do the 2020, how you're thinking about that process of getting sort of more information, gathering, foundation building, what your timeline for that looks like?
Our timeline usually revolves around the governor's budget, which is a Jan 10 release, but I think this one may take a little longer. And it is really going to be a kind of a cohesive effort with the legislature and a lot of different folks. So we don't know if we'll have anything ready for Jan 10, but I think we will have some discussion points released, or at least kind of have an idea where we're going. But definitely by May of next year, we should have something that's going to be part of the 2020 budget.
Nice. Yes, go ahead.
Just, one more clarification. The 152 that is going to move the SELPAs to at minimum the STR, is that also one time, or should that also be considered one time?
It is considered one time as well. Yeah, just with the whole idea that
change is coming.
Change is coming. Yeah. That sounds very ominous.
I know.
Good change.
Good change, yes.
Well, we appreciate you coming and engaging us, and I know folks are eager to understand more and think about this and be involved in conversations, so please don't hesitate to reach out if we can be of assistance and just thinking out loud with you.
I think we discussed this too. I think one of the parts we'd like to kind of start at is this kind of assembling a group of your folks to just start the conversation and see insight that you could provide or direction, and then we'll start reaching out to different areas in the field. And
nice.
It might take a while because we have to coordinate with all the ledge staff and different people, but I'll leave, if I have them, I don't always carry, but I'll leave some business cards if
Nice, absolutely. Well, thank you for that. Any last questions, commissioners, thoughts, comments? Great. Well, thank you again for coming over. I know our timing was flexible, so thank you for hurrying over. Okay, commissioners, we have completed our charge for this meeting. Yes, Mildred.
So, Kristin, is CDE, your office, in any way involved in some of the conversations around the reform that's mentioned?
So our governmental affairs will be working as a conduit for us with finance and the governor's office and having conversations, I'm sure.
Okay.
Fantastic. All right. So that concludes the content for the June meeting. I want to thank you again for your passion and your energy and your content and your discussion. And I wish you safe travels home, and we will see you back here in August. All right. We did. We did. We tried to channel you. We did. Well, she had a couple of different items. Let's close the meeting.